your place, seated before your microphone, just as I'm seated before mine. How are you doing, everybody? I hope you had a great weekend, and welcome back once again to another exciting episode of As the Nick Turns here on Evening Words on your favorite conversation station, WURD AM 996.1 FM. How you doing, folks? My name's Nick, and I'm glad to be your host. I will be your pilot. We'll be flying at an altitude of intelligence, and you need to strap in, especially those of you who did not bring your full complement of brains, because it's going to be a little tough every once in a while when we take some sharp turns, and sharp turns we shall indeed take. So I hope that you good folks can get yourself ready, strap yourself in, and do what you need to do to be a part of this conversation. We're going to have some fun today. I hope that we're going to have some fun today, and we want you to know that we are looking forward to Earth Day this week, and this is Earth Week. So we'll be talking about the Earth all this week, and folks, when you really get down to it, it's the only home we've got. We might want to try to take a little bit better care of Earth Week, of the Earth that we live on. We might want to try to take a little bit better care of it, because if we lose this one, if we lose this house, folks, we got ourselves nothing left. So let's try to take care of this home that is ours, that we call the Earth. And I'm hoping, folks, that in taking care of it, that we will be able to make it a better place to live, both naturally, organically, with the stuff that grows on it, and also civically. We've got some real issues when it comes to this planet that we're on. We can't seem to get along. Every time you turn around, we're fighting. It's like watching a documentary of the plains of the Serengeti in Africa. You got hyenas, trying to creep up on lions, and lions trying to creep up on antelopes, and elephants telling all of them to get out of the way, and crocodiles trying to chase baby hippos. Everybody's trying to get at everybody. It makes me wonder a little bit. What in the heck is wrong with us? We've got to be able to do better than this. I'm telling you, we must be able to do better than this. All right. Okay, good folks. I got a lot to share with you today. We've got guests coming your way. And not only do we have guests coming your way, but we've also got a few clips to play. But before we do all of that good stuff, before I introduce you to the guest and introduce you to some of our recorded clips so that you can wrap your mind around some of the things we want to talk about, should I not introduce you to the man who is the eighth wonder of the natural world? It has been proven. Scientists have done the research, and they have already decided, as of this moment, that the eighth wonder of the natural world descends from a small family in South New Jersey, and matriculated in the halcyon halls of learning of Hampton University. Please, ladies and gentlemen, give it up for the man who is the eighth wonder of the world. They call him Agent Number 31. People have been known to label him Frosty Phoenix. His mama calls him Eric, and Desiree calls him Sweetie Pie, but we call him Mr. Nixonian. Eric, what's happening in your world, my friend?
Every week, I wouldn't think you'd possibly be able to expound on my biography. And then every day I am pleasantly surprised.
Well, man, we try to make sure that people recognize what a true talent that you are. I mean, you're not just some guy off the street. You're Eric Nixon, man. Do people not know? Have they not heard? Has it not been given to them? I mean, you're the man, the myth, and the legend. So we thought that we would, do it up in quite a way. How was your weekend, man? How did it go for you?
The weekend went fine. It was a very nice weekend. I spent some time. My mother is fine, by the way. Shout out to Mom.
Good. That was going to be, that was my next question,
So that
was Miss Brenda.
She's good. She's good with that procedure on Friday, so it was good. Saturday, cool. Spent time with friends. Sunday, got my second Pfizer shot. So I'm
I just want to make a pause real quick because, folks, he just informed me of something. He said he spent time with friends. I was not included, so Eric just told me I am not his friend. That's okay. I can live. I've
No,
had
you
worse
said
things
you
happen.
didn't want to meet up with me
It's
Friday. We
okay.
were supposed to meet up on Friday for something important station business, and you said
No, it hurts me to my
you didn't
heart,
want to
but
meet up, and I said, okay,
it
fine,
hurts me
that's
to
cool, I
my heart,
understand.
but
You
it's
said
okay.
Friday, I don't want to meet up. I said, you sure? He said,
I'm
yeah.
just a friend. I'm just a
You
gigolo.
can't blame me. You
Everywhere I
can't blame me. You
go.
denied me on Friday, so Saturday I made plans. You just make plans for somebody else. Clearly you don't want to spend time. So, I'm not gonna chase you down. Like, what you think? Who you think I am?
Oh, okay. I see
Who
how
you
this
think
thing
I
works.
I
I
is?
see how I sees how it works. I'm seeing it.
I'm
I
surprised I'm
seen
this.
it for myself.
I'm surprised I'm this energetic after taking that second shot yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, you took the Pfizer second.
Yeah.
Man, that'll normally kind of lay you down for a
Uh,
little bit. Did you feel a little tired?
I was fine yesterday. I was like, okay, that's I'm relaxing. Last night I hit the shivers like I was doing the shimmy. I said, what is that? You know?
Yeah, man, it gets you close. I remember when I took my second Pfizer shot, it felt like it felt the day that I actually got the coronavirus, but
For me, it felt
not as bad, not as bad, but it felt like it was creeping up on me, and I'll tell you, that can scare you just a little bit.
for me it feels like a standard common cold.
Yeah, yeah,
You know?
or like the beginning of the flu.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
shimmied that out. It's not. It took Tylenol today, but it's starting to drag on me today. So if you don't get anything on time, just understand it's a warning. You say, Eric, play the clip. Eric, where's the clip? I say, I got you. I got you. I got you.
Well, you know what? Well, since we're talking about a clip, let me get you while I got you on one. You're familiar with, and everybody else is familiar with the big dust up that they had on the television show called The Talk. You remember that one?
I remember that. Yeah.
Sharon Osbourne, the wife of Ozzy Osbourne. Now, Sharon Osbourne is snippy, acerbic. She could be very sharp with her tongue.
Say that 10 times fast. That previous word you just used.
Snippy, acerbic,
There you
sharp with the
go.
tongue. Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about. Acerbic.
Acerbic, yes. Acerbic.
Interesting.
Kind of acidic and cutting and biting, yeah. I mean, and everybody knew that she was that. I mean, there have been rumors about her not getting along with people, but that wouldn't be anything new. A lot of shows, people don't get along with each other. Holly Robinson Peete, who is a sweetheart of Philadelphia, married to Rodney Peete, the former Eagles quarterback, said that Sharon Osbourne could be a little bit nasty. Now, Sharon Osbourne swears she's the sweetest thing since honey was dropped into a bowl of sugar and then wrapped in some saccharin. She thinks so. But the big dust-up, for those of you who missed it, was almost 4 weeks ago when Sharon Osbourne, defending her friend, what's the boy's name? What's his name? Piers Morgan.
Yeah.
Defending Piers Morgan, who had lit into Meghan Markle.
Markle.
Her. I get it wrong all the time. I always say Markle. Meghan Markle, right? He lit into Meghan Markle. It became a huge thing, and then Sharon Osbourne decided that she was going to take up for her friend Piers Morgan, who doesn't have a racist bone in his body. Now, this is the problem, folks. Racism is not what you intend. Racism is the impact that you have. You don't have to wake up in the morning and say, I'm going to hate this race of people in order to be racist. All you have to do is, by your actions or your lack of actions, support racist policies. Now, Sharon Osbourne, in defending Piers Morgan, did not realize how she was coming across. She was one of those kind of people who insisted that you see me the way that I choose to be seen, rather than recognizing that people have the right to see you as they perceive you. She gets upset. She's yelling and even cussing at Cheryl Underwood on the show, saying, educate me. And it gets ugly, and ultimately...
You have no right to cry. Don't you cry.
Yes.
Don't you cry. Yeah.
See, now she doesn't even realize that that's racist. Now, it's racist because you're saying it to a black woman. It's stupid because you said it in the first place. But you add to it by saying it to a black person because we live in a context. If I do something to a woman and it is perceived that I have power that she does not have, then I can be viewed as sexist whether I intended to be or not. Sharon Osbourne doesn't want to admit that. She didn't want to see that. But here's the thing, and I want you to crank up that clip of hers in just a second. One of the former hosts of the show said that Sharon Osbourne, that's not the first time that she'd been racist. One of the former hosts of the show, and just like that, I forget, she was the one who played on the television show The King of Queens. And just like that.
Ramey, something like that.
Remini,
Yeah.
Leah Remini.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much, man. Leah Remini, who was also, tough talking, Brooklyn girl, said that Sharon Osbourne got me fired by saying that I was too ghetto. I want to share with you what Sharon Osbourne said in response to Leah Remini, saying that Sharon Osbourne had accused Leah Remini of being too ghetto. She says, that's not a term I'm quoting her now, and that is not a term I use. That's not in my vocabulary. I don't speak like that. The only ghetto I know is the Warsaw Ghetto, and I think that's the only time I've ever referred to something like that. This is a direct quote from Sharon Osbourne saying, I don't use the term ghetto. The only time I've used the word ghetto only ghetto I know is the Warsaw Ghetto, which of course she's talking about World War II. And I don't even use terms like that. How dare you lie on me and say I said something that I know I didn't say, because I don't use terms like that. Now, I want to tell you something. You got to be careful when you say, I never said this, or that's not something that I would say. Do you remember the O.J. Simpson trial, Eric? You were young, but you remember the trial?
Yeah, man. Yes, I do. I was going to joke and be like, I was there, but no. Yes, I remember.
Well, the main figure in the trial was the detective whose name escapes me as soon as I go to it. The detective who found the glove and the whole bit, and they asked him, was he racist? No. You ever use the N-word? No, I never used the N-word. Me, the closest I ever got to using the N-word was bigger or trigger or, a little cat on a television show called Tigger. I'd never used the N-word, not me. And man, they dug up a tape on him using the N-word like he was singing the Star-Spangled Banner. You got to be careful saying that you've never used it. Sharon Osbourne said that she never, ever used the word ghetto in the context that Leah Remini said that she doesn't even have it in her vocabulary. And the only word in her vocabulary that would be construed as ghetto would be the Warsaw Ghetto, and that she never even used that. All right, now that's what she said. I'm going to play a clip right now of Sharon Osbourne.
Before you go to that, Detective
Yes.
Berman,
Thank you.
good friend of the show, Bruce, dropped that line real quick.
It takes a detective to know a detective. Thank you, Bruce. I appreciate that. But here's Sharon Osbourne from an episode of The View back in January of 2011, listening to Leah Remini say something, and Leah is giving her some grief about, her British proper accent, and you can hear them going back and forth, and then you hear Sharon Osbourne say something, and it'll repeat itself. So don't cut it off after it stops, because you'll hear it again. All right, folks, here with Sharon Osbourne, who never, ever has used the word ghetto as an accusation or as an epithet. Please, Eric, if you would.
What did you just say?
This is what I'm going to say
Was
about
that
Leah.
in English?
Leah.
Why not in the proper King's English, Queen English? No, Sharon! It's all ghetto.
Oh. All right, now listen to her say it. Now I want you to hear it clearly. Here it is.
It's all ghetto.
Uh-huh. Now, there she is saying to Leah Remini, the same Leah Remini said that she said I was too ghetto. The same Sharon Osbourne who said, I never used that expression before. That's not me. And I shouldn't do that. That's little me. I'm so sorry. Please forgive me for that. But the same Sharon Osbourne who said that's something I don't say, and there she is on public television accusing Leah Remini of being ghetto. Right there, on TV. Now that means one of two things. One, it means that you say it so often that you forget how often you say it, and you think that you're covered when you're not. Or two, it means that that you are totally unaware of your racism, and that just like you were not aware that you used that expression, ghetto, there are probably other things that you've said that you are not aware of because your self-awareness has been eclipsed by your self-confidence. If you could, Eric, play that clip just one more time, just for the fun of it. If you, Sharon Osbourne being hoisted on her own petard, if you would, sir.
What did you just say?
This is what I'm going to say
Is
about
that
the
in
adults.
English?
Leave
Why not in the proper King's English, Queen English? No, Sharon! It's all ghetto.
Yeah, there you go. That is, and once again, Sharon, just in case we missed you the first time.
It's all ghetto.
Yeah, so you caught.
That hurt the way she said it.
Oh, it did.
That sounded painful. Like you ever had to break a bone on purpose? That's what it sounded like.
I remember once I dislocated my ankle. I mean, completely. My foot was on one side, my ankle was on the other. And they took me to the hospital. This was down in Alabama. I was in college at the time playing some basketball. And
what?
And a young doctor.
Huh?
Oh, man, I had skills, man. I was a problem, bro.
Balling? You ball?
Hey, man, look, I was a problem, man. Let me tell you, they used to call me, Stephon Curry, prophetically. But anyway, I'm down there. My foot is here. My ankle's there. A young doctor says, let me put this back in. And, man, it hurt like the devil when you could hear it go plop when he put the ankle back in the socket. I remember the pain. I mean, the urine ran down my leg, and I'm not being facetious. Well, another older doctor who was orthopedic came in. I'm in the emergency room at Huntsville General Hospital, and he comes in and he says, "Did they take x-rays?" I said, "No." And he turned to the doctor, "Did you take x-rays?" And the doctor said, "No." He says, "Well, we got to get x-rays of what it looks like when it's separated." So he told me, he says, "I'm going to have to take your ankle back out of joint." Eric, I want you to know that I saw the Lord in all of his glory. When he took that ankle out of joint, I saw 3 archangels doing a tightrope walk across Niagara Falls carrying pink umbrellas. I have never known pain like that. That's what that Sharon Osbourne clip was. Straight pain. We got more stuff to share with you coming down the way. We've got guests coming your way. Let me tell you who the guests are before we take our first break of the day. As you know, this is Earth Week, and when you talk about Earth, you talk about land. When you talk about land, you talk about stuff that Black people used to have that they have no more. Our first guest at 4:30 is Savvy Horn. She is the executive director of the Land Loss Prevention Project. And she's going to be telling us about the precipitous loss of land in the hands of Black people coming up in just a few moments. At 5:30, we're going to check in with renowned researcher and social scientist Dr. John Roman, formerly of the Urban Institute and now a senior fellow at the National Opinions Research Center at the University of Chicago. He recently wrote a paper about crime and violence in America. Wait until you hear that discussion, all sorts of good stuff. And then we'll hear something from the White House a little bit later on. Stay with us, folks. It's time for us to take our first pause of the day. 24 minutes after the hour of 4, you're listening to Evening Words. Eric Nixon is on the console, and I'm here just with soul. You know where you are. We'll get together after this break. Back after this.
Now, a traffic update on WURD Radio.
Lots of delays on the Schuylkill Expressway this afternoon, westbound jamming up University Avenue all the way to Montgomery Drive, due in large part to that new traffic shift, that construction layout there. More delays westbound Boulevard to Belmont and Gladwin to Conshohocken, and eastbound backs up Montgomery Drive to South Street. The Vine, very heavy eastbound the entire length, 76 to 95. On the Boulevard, we're backing up northbound Schuylkill to Broad Street. 95 has delays northbound the Vine to Bridge Street, southbound through the construction, Cobman to Bridge. We go to Jersey for some delays in Deptford. 55 northbound between Deptford and 42, and 295 northbound heavy at the 42 freeway because of construction blocking the right lane. Report brought to you by Indeed.com. With Indeed, you don't need a storm to catch lightning in a bottle. Find great people fast with hiring tools like Instant Match, which searches millions of resumes in Indeed's database to deliver people whose resumes fit your job description. Visit Indeed.com/credit. And for more traffic information, log on to SIGAlert.com. I'm Jason Lee with your Philadelphia area traffic.
Recovery starts with a call. Pennsylvania's Substance Use Disorder Hotline is staffed by real people who are trained to help. They're here 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They'll get you or your loved one into treatment regardless of your access to insurance. If you or someone you know is suffering from addiction, call 1-800-662-HELP. Recovery starts with a call.
Paid for with Pennsylvania taxpayer dollars.
A Part of Me boutique, located 3834 Lancaster Avenue, sells men's and women's clothing, shoes, and beautiful accessories. Items can be ordered if not in the store. Check out our lovely one-of-a-kind chairs with reupholstered African fabric. A Part of Me is open Wednesday through Saturday from 11:30 to 6 p.m. You can expect friendly, professional service and unique finds. A Part of Me boutique, located 3834 Lancaster Avenue, sells men's and women's clothing, shoes, and beautiful accessories. Items can be ordered if not in the store. Check out our lovely one-of-a-kind chairs with reupholstered African fabric. A Part of Me is open Wednesday through Saturday from 11:30 to 6 p.m. You can expect friendly, professional service and unique finds.
The Black Words Book Club. WURD Radio's monthly conversation on books that explore the African American experience through social, economic, and environmental justice issues. Tune in the second Tuesday of every month on Evening Words with Nick Taliaferro, 4 p.m. till 7 p.m. The next book for May is Living in Color by Tommy Davidson. Be sure to listen live, as Nick Taliaferro will hold a contest for a giveaway book bundle that consists of 4 titles from Kensington's Defina's Authors of Color's newest release. Don't miss it. Tuesday, May 11th on Evening Words with Nick Taliaferro. Attention for WURD members. Get your copy and receive a 20% discount when you purchase at Harriet's Bookstore or Hakeem's Bookstore. For more information on the Black Words Book Club, visit wordradio.com. The Black Words Book Club is sponsored by Defina. Defina is an imprint of Kensington Publishing Corporation, America's independent publisher, concentrating on authors of color. WURD TV. We're streaming live video of this conversation right now. Tune in on YouTube at onWURD or on Facebook at ForWord. WURD TV. Black Talk Media. You're listening to Evening Words, hosted by Nick Taliaferro, exclusively on WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD.
28 big minutes after the hour, 4 o'clock in America's favorite city. You're listening strong to 900 AM, 96.1 FM, WURD. How you doing, everybody? Nick Taliaferro is my name. Hopefully down the road some, I'll get to know yours. But before we get to know each other's, it's my privilege to give a name to you that will be pivotal for the conversation that we are about to have. As you know, it is Earth Day on Thursday, and the days preceding up to it, known as Earth Week. You can't talk about the earth without talking about land, and you can't talking about land without discussing the very dangerous level of land ownership, or the lack of land ownership, in the hands of people of African descent. It is frightening to consider the fact that in 1910, African American farmers made up about 14% of farmers and owned 16 to 19 million acres of land, but by 2012, African Americans were only 1.5% of farming communities And that 16 to 19 million acres was down to 3.6 acres of land. But we're not doing nothing about that dearth and that reversal of fortune. The Land Loss Prevention Project in North Carolina is doing their level best to make sure that they curtail the epidemic losses of black-owned land in North Carolina. And here joining us today to talk about it is the executive director of this very fine organization, Savvy Horn. Savvy, it's a pleasure to meet you, and I want to make sure again, now that we are publicly talking, that I am saying your name correctly, because your first name is a bit more exotic and extensive than just Savvy. Am I not correct?
Yes, Savonala. But
Yep.
it's fine. Savvy's fine.
Well, Savvy, it's a pleasure to meet you, and I know that you're really busy, and it was really kind of you to take some time out of your day to speak to us about land, because there was a time when black people were very close to the land, but over the last 100 years, it's almost like it's demeaning to be connected to land, and we've been trying to run away from it.
Well, I wouldn't characterize it like that. I think there are some people who would like that characterization, but for African Americans, it has always been about the land and preventing dispossession of the land. Unfortunately, but rooted in our family system, there is a system of heirs property in which 4 parents left land without will, and creating under legal structures at state level a very tenuous estate that houses every member of the family, the lineage, and becomes kingship property in a way. And out of that, you get a structure of tenancy in common, which is very, very weak and subject to partition sale across these statutes, or basically across the South. But it's dominant in the South, but not exclusively. It is an instrument by which you can get at using partition sale to get at heirs property. So you have the heirs property in terms of how we own land, what predominantly of that 15 million back in 1910. And one has to say on Earth Day that our ancestors did what they had a calling to do, and it comes right out of their religiosity, and it's about going up and repossess the land after you have broken off the shackles of slavery, and that they did 50 years after the end of the Civil War.
Let me ask you a question, Savvy, because you make mention of the fact that it was a part of our tradition to repossess the land, that it was a part of our tradition to kind of revere the land, but in the same breath, we recognize that things happened that caused us to lose it. Was this by intention, or was this a byproduct of?
I think there was a lot of it was intentionality. Let's be clear. You had a 1982 U.S. Commission and Civil Rights report, which squarely put discrimination by the Department of Agriculture against African American farmers as one of the leading cause of land loss. And then coupled with it is, of course, heirs property. So then, you had race discrimination, and then you had issues of an unstable ownership and a tendency on certain members of the white community and within your family to get at that estate, whether it was due to real estate speculation or development in other ways. The land was gotten, and it wasn't because Black people just rolled over and said, take my land. It's clear when you look, and I can cite you some really jarring stat, that
Please do.
when you look, ironically, during the civil rights period, okay, which classically is 1954 to 69, that during our fight for social and economic and political rights, Black land ownership fell to 6 million. When you look at this and you kind of look behind the numbers to see what was going on, you notice that between 54 and 69, full-time farmers, operators fell from 126,000 to 52,000. That's coming off of having almost 1 million farmers back in 1915. Now, of course, there were other dynamics at play: market forces, mechanization of agriculture, the loan structure, all of that factored in. But the idea of losing so much land while you are fighting for civil rights, to me, paints a picture of deliberate, I would say grabbing of land, almost as a way to punish people who were engaged in protecting their civil rights.
Savvy, but you know, and you speak of the other factors that contributed to the loss of land. I mean, you know, big pharma, where farms became industrialized. But I'm noticing though that during the same time that Black people were losing ownership of land, white people, their ownership portion increased. So, you know, what was good for the goose was not good for the gander, or what was bad for the goose was not bad for the gander. So you have to almost conclude that this was racially aimed.
Well, and I think you can, and I think you can be supported by the information. But there's also another reality that, say, during the 1980s farm crisis, which was when Land Loss Prevention Project came into being, you also had white farmers losing land, small white farmers. Disproportionate impact has been on Black farmers and other people of color farmers. So yes, I really think there is support for your, you know, your facts that it could have been a deliberate and orchestration to reduce Black land ownership. I think you can support that based on the statistics. So for example, let's go back to my home state, a state that I've grown in and grown to love and its people. But let's see what was going on in 1954. There were 22,000, I'm just using the round number, of Black farmers in 54, and by 69, okay, near the end of the civil rights period, there was 9,600.
Can you quote those numbers again, because that's staggering?
In 1954, Brown v. Board of Ed, beginning of the civil rights struggle, there was 22,625 Black farmers in the state. And by 1969, you had 9,687, representing a 57.2% decline.
Now,
but let's hold a second now. Let's
okay.
Land ownership, okay? Because that's key. During the same period, between 1954 to 1969, you had Black farmers, Black families owning 1,085,000 acres of land in 54, and that by 1969 you had 558,861 in 69. That's almost 50%, more accurately, over 48% decline.
So it's comparable.
The very period in which Black farmers were shielding our people who were marching and being jailed for civil rights, using their land as collateral, right? Active engagement in that struggle in Mississippi and elsewhere, their numbers were being decimated as they were struggling for their civil rights.
I'm noticing that you made mention of the fact that it was in 1982 that the government said, hey, look, we got a problem here. And that is coincidentally the same time that we see your agency coming to the fore, the Land Loss Prevention Project. How do you help to reverse the negative impacts of the airship problems and the other legal problems that cause black hands to lose possession of black lands?
So when the Land Loss Prevention Project came into being in 1983, the North Carolina Association of Black Lawyers convened a task force to look at what was causing the disproportionate impact in the loss of land in eastern North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
And as a result of the task force, they incorporated the Land Loss Prevention Project as part of the organization, and it began in 1983 to work at using legal tools to assist Black farmers and Black farm families to hold on to land, using legal tools, using outreach, beginning to really push farm families to develop wills so that we can begin to contain the heirs property issue generationally. And then we began by the late 1990s in our work with North Carolina A&T, the African American Land Grant Institution, agriculture-based institution, and the 1862 predominantly white institution got together with some Kellogg resources, Kellogg Foundation, to come together and look at sustainable agriculture, growing sustainable agriculture, seeding it in the state as a way of improving not just the environment and nutrition, but assisting farmers with their bottom line. And that took off in a big way. So I would say, we use traditional methods, skill lawyering, wills and estate planning, outreach to inform community members of their rights. And we also use technical assistance coming out of the land grant institution to improve the local farm economy that African Americans were working in.
We're going to take a quick pause, but when we come back, we'll continue our conversation with the executive director of the Land Loss Prevention Project based in North Carolina. We're speaking with the executive director, Savvy Horn, who is an attorney, and she leads this organization in helping Black farmers in particular, but also poor farmers, to retain their hold on lands that have been in their hands and should remain as such. We'll talk a little bit more about what's being done to assist Black farmers as they face the plight of trying to hold on to their lands. It is now 18 minutes away from the hour of 5. We'll open the phone lines at 215-634-8065, 215-634-8065. Some of you might want to call in and find out what happened to Big Mama's property down in North Carolina. I don't know if our guest knows, but you can certainly ask her. We'll be back right after these words. Stay with us.
You probably heard it before, but one of the best ways to stay safe from COVID is by avoiding crowds. That's better. Also, when you're out in public, make sure you stay 6 feet away from strangers or people you don't live with. It's okay to say, "Can I have some space, please?"
Well, it's going to be a beautiful sunny day today, and we can expect much.
If you're gonna have a get-together with friends and family, have it outside. And remember to keep those 6 feet of social distance. And last but not least, wear a mask that covers your nose and mouth with no gaps. They slow the spread of COVID or new forms of the virus called variants. And make sure you get your vaccine when it's your turn. We're all out here trying our best, and it's making a difference. We just gotta keep it up.
We can do this.
To learn more about slowing the spread, visit cdc.gov www.word.org/coronavirus. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
The WURD Radio Newsletter, keeping you informed, engaged, and connected. Sign up by visiting wordradio.com. Scroll to the bottom of the page and type your email address under Connect with Us. You'll receive the latest information on WURD Radio, messages from our president and CEO, Sarah Lomax Reese, exclusive articles and multimedia content, and resources. Stay informed with the WURD Radio Newsletter.
Family Therapy Vignette Moments with Dr. Lucille Ijoy.
Wrapping during this time of the pandemic. Yes, taking a little time with fun. You know, your refrigerator is busy all day long. You pull the handle and you bump it closed. You pull the handle and bump it closed. Well, here's a rap about that. You go to the refrigerator 20 times a day. You gotta find a way. Oh, you gotta find a way to do the pull refrigerator bump. Yes, the pull refrigerator bump. You want to make a sandwich. Bologna's good today. You got to find a way. I said, you got to find a way to do the pull refrigerator bump. Oh, the pull refrigerator bump. You meet some family members. Looks like they're going to stay. You both want chocolate ice cream. Oops, they're standing in the way. They're standing in the way of the pull refrigerator bump. The pull refrigerator bump. So when you take your mask off, oh, what they're going to say, because you'll be the winner at the end of the day. Yes, you'll be the winner at the end of the day to the pull refrigerator bump. The pull refrigerator bump. Say it again. The pull refrigerator bump. I said it. The pull refrigerator bump.
Listening to the Streets brings together young men to create street-level solutions to gun violence. Participants receive a $240 stipend, and if they attend 8 sessions, they're guaranteed a job offer. Man Up PHL and WURD want to end gun violence. Listening to the Streets is a step. Interested? Call 267-748-7818. That's 267-748-7818. Or email us at info@manupPHL.org.
WURD TV. We're streaming live video of this conversation right now. Tune in on YouTube at onWURD or on Facebook at ForWord. WURD TV. Black Talk Media. You're listening to Evening Words, hosted by Nick Taliaferro, exclusively on WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm traveling the road of acquaintance and reacquaintance with someone that I'm just meeting, and it is so enjoyable. My guest is Savvy Horn. She's the executive director of an organization that seeks to assist people of color in particular, but poor people in general, from losing their lands. It's called the Land Loss Prevention Project. During this time that we celebrate the earth, we're trying to find ways to keep hold of that portion of it that might pertain to us. Savvy Horn is the executive director. We welcome her back. Thank you for staying with us, and welcome back to you.
Thank you, but I just want to just uplift the role of urban agriculture in Philadelphia and the rootedness of that for Black folks. So we haven't really left agriculture. It is rooted in our spirituality and in our soul. There's some beautiful people in Philadelphia growing food for communities.
Yes.
And I just want to uplift Katrina Baxter. I believe she's with Blackter Collective. And they're doing amazing work in Philadelphia and in African-American BIPOC communities, people of color communities around Philadelphia. And she has been instrumental in movement towards Black land justice nationally. So I just want to uplift that work is ongoing. And there are many, many people involved, and we are rooted in land justice, and we want land to be returned to African Americans that were illegally gotten or due to pressures of racism were taken. And and we see some ways in which some legislation that got passed recently during the COVID period will assist in land recovery or new land being awarded to African Americans who want to go into agriculture.
Speaking of going into agriculture, tomorrow, he was going to follow you in today's program, but he'll be coming on tomorrow. A gentleman by the name of Gary McCummins owns over 400 acres of land. He says it's difficult now to find people who want to work the land. Is one of the reasons why there's so few black farmers, so few small farmers, period. Is it because you have to operate a farm at such a massive scale now that the small farmer just does not have an opportunity to make a living doing farming? Is that why it's so few small farmers?
Well, I mean, you do have within the African American farming community those who are of commercial scale, 5, 10, 15, 20,000 acres in crop, cotton, soy, and wheat, and some tobacco. So, I mean,
just a quick interruption.
And rice farmers.
How big do you have to be a commercial scale? I mean, when you say 15,000 acres, how many acres do you need before you're considered commercial scale?
Well, I think given market dynamics, you would have to be at least 5,000 and up. If that's the market that you want, it could be less. I'm not an expert. My spirit lies with those who are smallholder farmers who's small, anywhere from 5 to 10 to 15 to 20, 50 acres of land, 100 in cases.
And that's a small farmer, 50
yeah,
acres.
that is a small farmer.
Lord have mercy.
And they mightily work the land and they feed their community. And they've been doing that for a long time. And that's why we're still here.
And these small farmers can actually make a living, because this guest that'll be coming on tomorrow is saying that it is time for us to learn how to sustain ourselves through the use of land as our forebears once did.
Yes.
And others are saying you can't do it unless you've got, you know, a bazillion acres of land.
No, I disagree. And I would point you, Nick, as well, to the movement work of Dara Cooper, who is the founder of the National Black Food Justice Alliance, and they're doing it. I would also point you to Malik Yakini, who is with the founder of the Detroit Black Food Security Network, and they are farming small lots, city lots, but they're also building self-determined economies in which a grocery store is being built. So when you look the work on our website, the National Black Food and Justice Security Alliance, you see where small urban farmers are making the difference, and those who are able to get land in rural communities, small farmers, young farmers are doing amazing things to lift agriculture and provide nutritious food for their communities. I see things looking up in our current sector as we adopt new ways of production and going back to our agrarian tradition, which is rooted in sustainability anyway.
Are we working against ourselves, and by going to the store to find the cheapest price possible in the big box stores and the big supermarkets, are we working against ourselves by saving a few nickels to buy produce and other items from these huge stores that operate these industrial-sized farms, rather than going to a small farmer's market or a mom-and-pop establishment?
I think even in Philadelphia, you've seen a turnaround in terms of food accessibility, in terms of some of the work of Hiley Johnson of Common Market, which is in Philly, and Trina Baxter and others in that movement, it shows that, yes, you can scale it to business like level, like highly, or you can remain very, very local and feed your community. It clearly is the case that that is happening and that people have more choices. But I think the food system is rooted in such a way that it makes people wanna buy cheap food.
Yeah.
Cheap food.
Got a real
which is
quick.
detrimental to our bodies. We saw that during this COVID period.
Let's take a real quick phone call. Time is fleeting before we get to the top of the hour. And I know that our guest has about 28 million other things that she has to do. She's been more than kind to give us this time. Reverend Joe, really quickly, sir, if you would be able to bring your question to our guest, Savvy Horn.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon,
sir.
You have another award-winning program. I think two things I have to bring up. A lot of the black farmers can't get the loan to get the good equipment they need to work the land. And some of them was working somebody else's land. I want to tell you this in history. A black lady owned Madison Square Garden at one time. So we have lost a lot of big lands and institutions. A lot of families, the families can't get together, and eight people in the family can't get together, put the money together to save the land because they don't see any returns. So this subject is so important, what you're on.
I sense, and Reverend Joe, you're right. Ms. Horn, I'm hoping that we can appeal to you to come back and
Yes.
continue this conversation.
I most certainly, I'm committed to that.
And I'm going to look up the Black Dirt Collective with Ms. Hoxter, and I'm going to check Dara Cooper.
Katrina Baxter, yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, it is the two things I'm really enjoying. First, just
And I will send you her email. So.
Oh, that'll be really helpful.
Sure.
I am enjoying first learning about something. Having grown up in the city of Philadelphia, don't know a whole lot about land, but being able to understand better the ways of land possession and land usage is one thing I'm enjoying. The other thing I'm enjoying is listening to your voice drift through the variety of accents of all of the different places that you have been.
Right.
It's
right. I'm a Pan-Africanist. I just.
Well, I tell you, today you have been our instructor. She is Savvy Horn, the executive director of the Land Loss Prevention Project. They're based in North Carolina, and they were started in 1982 by the North Carolina Association of Black Lawyers to help curtail the loss of black-owned land in North Carolina, and now they exist to help all small farmers and all small landowners to retain and use their land in sustainable ways. Savvy, it has been a real pleasure, and I'll be calling you again very soon.
Okay.
Thank
Wonderful.
you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity.
The privilege is mine, I assure you. We're going to take a quick break, folks. We're at the top of the hour. When we come back, got some more stuff to share with you right here on your favorite conversation station, 900 AM, WURD 96.1 FM. Stay with us. We'll be back.
As a community service, WURD Radio and the Black Doctors COVID-19 Consortium wants to keep you informed about where to receive the COVID-19 vaccine. The Black Doctors COVID-19 Consortium offers COVID-19 vaccines and COVID-19 testing at these locations. First come, first served. Saturday, April 24th and Sunday, April 25th from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. at the Dell Music Center, 2400 Strawberry Mansion Drive. Monday, April 19th from 9 a.m. till 11 a.m. at SEPTA Suburban Station, 16th and JFK Boulevard. Monday, April 19th, Tuesday, April 20th, and Thursday, April 22nd from 10 a.m. till 4 p.m. at the Leah Chorus Center, 1776 North Broad Street. Stay informed and stay well with WURD Radio.
96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD. Want the latest in WURD swag?
Check out the shop tab on wordradio.com. Hoodies, tees, and more in a variety of colors. The shop tab on wordradio.com. Show the world that you're all about black.
Talk media.
Spring forward to throwback. All this month, when you start or renew your ForWord membership, you'll get exclusive WURD throwback swag, vintage backpacks, books, and tees. While supplies last. Offer ends April 30th. Sow seeds into Black Talk Media and grow with us. Visit wordradio.com/join now to start or renew today. This is WURD Radio.
96.1 FM.
And 900 AM WURD Philadelphia.
Black Talk Media.
WURD TV. We're streaming live video of this conversation right now.
Tune in on YouTube at onWURD.
Or on Facebook at ForWord.
WURD TV.
Black Talk Media. You're listening to Evening Words,
hosted by Nick Taliaferro,
exclusively on WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD.
All right, folks. Now, tomorrow I'll be bringing before you a gentleman who is in possession of about 400 acres of land, and I have to thank my cousin Rosemary and her son Rick for introducing me to this gentleman. He is a former all-star guard for the Syracuse Orangemen football team by the name of Gary McCummins. Now, Gary owns a ton of land in North Carolina, and he's saying, look, we're going to take this land and we're going to start using it to be sustaining for communities of color. And I want to talk with him about that. I want to see what kind of challenges he's having. I must tell you that when it comes to land, what I was taught was to not let it get in your clothing, because my mother didn't feel like washing a lot. And I never grew anything until, wow, I still don't know if I've grown something. But, I mean, I can do okay with plants if I take care of them. But, you know, to think about how far we've drifted away from being an agrarian community to the point that our children have no real sense of what it means to grow things. They actually think that vegetables come in a bag, in a cooler, in the supermarket. They just don't know. I'm just kind of amazed at that. Oh, well. All right, a couple of other things that we'll talk about coming along at 5:30. I really can't wait for this conversation with Dr. John Roman. Dr. Roman, I met him years ago when we were trying to change the world. I was trying to change the world by creating a better justice system. And he was trying to change the world by doing research that demonstrated that our current justice systems and our penal systems, our incarceration systems, were failing to do the job that they purported to do. He was working for the Urban Institute. He did extraordinary work in that capacity. And then he moved on to become a part of a group called NORC, the National Opinions Research Center that's based at the University of Chicago. And he's still doing great work trying to demonstrate that we can actually create a more just society. And we'll be talking about the economics of crime and about incarceration. But most importantly, we'll be talking about justice systems, how they work or how they fail to work, and what can be done to change the context of our society when it comes to violence. All of that in just about another 25 minutes when Dr. Roman gets your way. If you notice, my voice is kind of getting itchy. All right, Susan, if you're listening, I'm going to give you your props. It's possible. Now, I doubt it, but it's possible that I have allergies because I'm noticing my eyes water and at times my nose gets stopped up, but I don't have any phlegm in my throat, and all of the signs of allergies are there. But the reason I know that I don't have allergies is because I don't have them. You see. But something's going on. I've got all sorts of stuff here to try to make sure that I can continue to talk and breathe And the only thing I can think is I just might have allergies. I hope it's not true. Golly day. I really hope that it is not true. Okay. All right. Let me do this right now, because this really gets me back to the racism thing. Racism is subtle now. What people think of when they think racist, they think of somebody with a pointy hood, burning a cross in somebody's lawn. That is racism. That's racism at an extreme. That is not the racism that you fear most, because these people are easily identifiable. They're idiots. You get these people out burning crosses and all. They're idiots. They recognize that their extreme level of racism doesn't play well. What you're looking for are people who tacitly, quietly, and with respectability support policies that are unjust and unfair. People who try to exclude and disenfranchise with nicety. These are the racists that you are most concerned about, most fearful of. And there are a lot of those people out there today. Before I go any further and talking about this, and I've got some stuff to share with you, let me take a moment to thank a gentleman that I met this past Friday at a supermarket who was just an absolute prince of a guy, Harold Williams. If you're listening, Harold, I know you work downtown. I want to thank you for being so kind in greeting me the other day. Man, you made my day, and I am proud to call you brother. Harold Williams, this one goes out to you. Bless you, your family, your friends. If you've got a dog or a cat, may they be blessed as well. Thank you for your kindness. And now I return to what I was sharing earlier. The racism that you fear is the kind that's respectable and tries to disenfranchise. See, what you don't want to shoot somebody as a racist. What you want to do is create a situation that so disenfranchises them that they don't have the opportunity to compete fairly. And if they get in, you want to find a way to dislodge them. You want to find a way to dislodge them so that they are weakened in their position, so that in their weakened state, they will appear to be failing. I'll give you a good example. We just had a president, whose name I shall not mention, who did all manner of evil and wickedness, and people just cheered him on. Not everybody, of course, but there were people just cheered him on. But these same people, 6 years previous to that, saw a decent president who was the husband of one wife, raised his 2 children, not one hint of scandal about his personal life, went to church on a regular basis, all of the stuff that they say that they want in a president. But he wore a suit that was tan one day, and you would have thought that he shot the Pope and raped a busload of nuns. Because what they tried to do is just anything that could weaken him, demean him, detract from him, so that you can weaken him enough to say, see, he's not doing the job. Now, I'm bringing all that to bear on something I want you to listen to, okay? There was a reporter who works for Newsmax. Newsmax is the new darling of the right wing. It used to be Fox News, but now it's Newsmax. Emerald Robinson is a reporter for Newsmax. When I heard this clip of hers that I'm about to play for you, and Eric, if you could cue up the Emerald Robinson clip, when I heard it, I said, now where is this woman from? She grew up in the mountains of Southwest Virginia, yeehaw, in coal mining county. That tells me a little bit about her. Tells me just a little bit. Well, that's just a little bit of her context, and it's okay. All right, I get it. Well, this woman, Emerald Robinson, who works for Newsmax, decided that the ambassador to the United Nations, Linda Thomas Greenfield, who is a highly respected African-American woman, she decided that Linda Thomas Greenfield should be fired because of something that Linda Thomas Greenfield said in giving a speech to the United Nations. I'm going to play the clip so you can hear what the ambassador said in the speech. I want you to hear this because Emerald Robinson was saying, oh, she can't be my ambassador saying these things. Eric, if you would be so kind, this is a short clip of a speech being given by Linda Thomas Greenfield, ambassador to the United Nations of the United States. Eric, if you would.
The U.S. ambassador to the UN, Linda Thomas Greenfield, talking to a group on Wednesday, essentially said that white supremacy is woven into our founding documents and principles. Now, this statement is getting widely criticized as essentially parroting Chinese Communist Party talking points.
I'm not sure, Eric, if others are hearing it, but I am not hearing it.
Okay, it was. Let's try this again.
Okay, I wasn't sure, and I said, I better say something in case. I said, Eric might have fallen off the chair. His tongue might be lolling out of his mouth, and he might need some medical help. Let me see if he's
Hey, man,
there.
I need some tea. I'm going to play the clip. I'm going to go get some tea, and then, come back,
One more time. This is United States Ambassador to the United Nations, Linda Thomas Greenfield.
The U.S. ambassador to the UN, Linda Thomas Greenfield.
No. That's
talking to
wrong clip. If you would play the you know what? No, Eric, you're absolutely right. That was the right clip.
Now you're trying to take advantage of me being sick, and you're telling me Emerald, and the other one says Sharon Osbourne.
I messed myself up that time. We're going to listen to Emerald Robinson first.
That is Emerald Robinson.
Attacking Linda Thomas Greenfield. We're listening to Emerald Robinson, the reporter from Newsmax. One day when I grow up, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to be able to do this job with some skill. All right, we're listening to the reporter from Newsmax, Emerald Robinson, attacking the ambassador because of a speech. Now listen to what Emerald Robinson says. Okay.
The U.S. ambassador to the UN, Linda Thomas Greenfield, talking to a group on Wednesday, essentially said that white supremacy is woven into our founding documents and principles. Now, this statement is getting widely criticized as essentially parroting Chinese Communist Party talking points. So, is the president going to remove her from her position as the representative before that body to promote United States values?
This is a White House press conference. This woman, Emerald Robinson, is saying that the United States ambassador got up and basically said that the white supremacy is a part of the founding documents of the United States of America. And is the president going to let her stay on? In other words, she's saying the president ought to fire this woman for saying it. Now, I want you to hear what Linda Thomas Greenfield actually said in a speech that she was given. This is just a small clip of it, but you'll get the tone, you'll get the tenor of the speech. I want you to hear what Emerald Robinson was criticizing from our United States ambassador to the UN. Ambassador Linda Thomas Greenfield, if you would, Eric.
Bus to a segregated school. On weekends, the Klan burned crosses on lawns in our neighborhood. I shared these stories and others to acknowledge on the international stage that I have personally experienced one of America's greatest imperfections. I've seen for myself how the original sin of slavery weaved white supremacy into our founding documents and principles.
Now, I want to play this again because I want to make sure that you hear what she said. What she said that Emerald Robinson said she ought to be fired for. Eric, if you would play that one more time so that everybody can hear what supposedly was so heinous that the ambassador said. One more time, if you would, Ambassador Linda Thomas Greenfield.
I was bused to a segregated school. On weekends, the Klan burned crosses on lawns in our neighborhood. I shared these stories and others to acknowledge on the international stage that I have personally experienced one of America's greatest imperfections. I've seen for myself how the original sin of slavery weaved white supremacy into our founding documents and principles.
Now, what she said, first of all, was just spot on true. She said, I've seen one of America's greatest weaknesses, and look, you can't love something without being willing to criticize it. And she's saying that racism was woven into the documents of the founding fathers. And Emerald Robinson said, she can't say that. Chinese people have said that. Well, first of all, I want to correct Emerald Robinson. The Chinese people didn't say it, and then the ambassador copied it. The ambassador said it, and then the Chinese quoted it because it's true. The United States, Thomas Jefferson said, I fear for my country if God is just. The United States has done some heinous and despicable things, even as they have done some very kind and beneficial things. But we have done some horrible things in the United States. What the United States did in Central America to establish the banana industry is evil. It is horrible. I mean, I'm surprised that the chasms of hell did not open up and swallow the nation whole when these things happened. It was evil. It's not the only thing we've ever done, but that was evil. What we did in Vietnam was horrible. Shoot. There are other places that we've done other things, you just didn't have the cameras there to record it. In my mind, one of the things that America did that is just crimson when it comes to culpability and wrong is what we did with Patrice Lumumba in the Congo, actually leading to the murder of a head of state. We have done some horrible things, atrocious things. You want to go further than that? What we did in World War II to secure victory when we did not have to do it, which is to drop those atomic bombs. There's something about that that is just odious, that the only nation in the world that has ever used atomic weapons, the nation in the world that has the most atomic weapons, goes around the world telling everybody else that they can't have them. There's something about that, ladies and gentlemen, that it's just, it's rank. And so the ambassador says, I saw it, I lived it with my own eyes, I've seen it. And the documents that are at the founding of this country are shot through and woven through with racism. The 3/5 compromise is a racist statement that says that certain people of color are 3/5 of a human being. That's racist. The fact that women could not vote is sexist. The fact that people who could not own land could not vote is elitist. The fact that the Supreme Court of the United States could say, in Plessy versus Ferguson, that a black man has no rights that a white man is bound to uphold and respect is racist. That they could put forward a document of separate but equal, knowing that it was separate but it wasn't equal, is racist. We know the fact that it could hold slavery as an acceptable institution is race. We know that it's true. Now, to the, and this is the part, and then we'll take a break. Here's the part that really just warmed my heart. The president's spokesperson, Jen Psaki, P-S-A-K-I, Jen Psaki, responded to Emerald Robinson. This is one white woman responding to another white woman at the highest place of reportage exchange in the country, in the White House press corps room, when Emerald Robinson attacked the ambassador, suggesting that President Joe Biden should fire her for telling the truth simply because the truth was also quoted by someone from China. I want you to listen to how Jen Psaki put Emerald Robinson politely in her place. And I'm talking about putting her in her place. Eric, if you would be so kind with that third clip.
Is the president going to remove an African-American woman with decades of experience in the Foreign Service, who's widely respected around the world, from her position as ambassador to the UN? He is not. He is proud to have her in that position. She is not only qualified, he believes she is exactly the right person in that role at this moment in time. I will say that there's no question that there has been a history of institutional racism in this country, and that doesn't require the UN ambassador to confirm that.
Oh, I loved it. She looks at this reporter who is, looking there stuck on stupid. And Jim, like I said, is the president going to fire an African-American woman who is respected all around this world for speaking the truth? No, stupid is what she really wanted to say, but she was more polite than that. And then she concluded by saying, and you don't need the ambassador to tell you that the United States of America, for all of the good that it would do, and for all of the decent people that might come through it, that the United States of America is shot through with racist policies and a racist history. You don't need if you need an ambassador to tell you that, then you need both hands to find your rear end. I just love it when people know how to slap people back into their place and not lose their dignity while doing so. 19 and a half minutes after the hour, 5 o'clock. Coming along in about 10 minutes, we'll check in with our second guest. This is going to be a good discussion on violence and the way the nation is headed when it comes to crime and punishment with Dr. John Roman after we take a few messages. Stay with us, folks. This is 900 AM, 96.1 FM, WURD. Evening Words is the name of the program. I'm Nick Taliaferro, and I'll return after these messages.
Wayne Avenue Health Food, located at 5007 Wayne Avenue, has been in business for 29 years. Wayne Avenue Health Food is a one-stop shop for all of your quality vitamins, herbs, and information with exceptional, friendly, experienced service. Wayne Avenue Health Food is open 7 days a week and delivers in the Philadelphia area and ships all over the country. For more information, call 267-338-6488.
In these days of isolation, being home with a medically fragile child is especially challenging. Mars Care has been helping families deal with this challenge since 1984. Mars Care understands the special healthcare needs these young patients require and is ready to provide skilled nursing, rehabilitative therapies, and home health aid services. Mars Care is here to help their families get through this difficult time. For more information, go to marscare.com. That's marscare.com. Jefferson Health offers no-cost COVID-19 testing sites at St. Raymond of Pinafort Church. Testing is on Thursdays and Saturdays. A second testing location has been added at Richard Allen Preparatory Charter School. Testing is on Wednesdays and Fridays. For testing hours and more information, visit jeffersonhealth.org/community testing.
COVID vaccines are here, and Black physicians and scientists helped to develop them. So I feel good about getting the vaccine. And with new forms of the virus now spreading, I know we need to keep up everything we're already doing. Masking up, keeping that 6-foot distance, and avoiding crowds. COVID's been doubly tough on us, so let's double down to take it down. We can do this. Learn more about getting the vaccine and slowing the spread at cdc.gov/coronavirus. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
Now, a traffic update
on WURD Radio.
Watch for a crash on the Roosevelt Boulevard northbound side. We have an accident between the Schuylkill and Wissahickon Avenue, blocking the right lane. Elsewhere, Schuylkill Expressway westbound, heavy Girard Avenue to the Boulevard, also City Avenue to Belmont Avenue, and Gladwin to Conshohocken. Eastbound backs up as we go between the Conshohocken curve and Belmont, City Avenue to the Boulevard, and then Spring Garden to South Street. The Vine heavy eastbound, the entire length 76 to 95. 95 heavy on the northbound side, Betsy Ross Bridge to Bridge Street, and southbound we back up through the construction zone, Coppin to Bridge. In Jersey and Deptford, northbound 55 is heavy between Deptford and the 42 freeway. Report brought to you by Napa Auto Parts. Whether it's offering curbside or next-day delivery for online orders on over 160,000 parts or getting involved in their local communities, when it comes to serving you, Napa's motor never quits. That's Napa Know-How. And for more traffic information, just log on to sigalert.com. I'm Jason Lee with your Philadelphia area traffic.
WURD TV. We're streaming live video of this conversation right now.
Tune in on YouTube at onWURD
or on Facebook at ForWord.
WURD TV.
Black Talk Media. You're listening to Evening Words,
hosted by Nick Taliaferro,
exclusively on WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD.
Back with you, ladies and gentlemen. In a few moments, I'll be checking in with my guest, Dr. John Roman. We'll be talking about violence, crime, and, Dr. Roman wrote a piece about how things were going to change. And you got to recognize that until 2020, violence in America, crime in America was on the downturn. And in reality, crime is still going downward. Violence took a steep turn upward in 2020. Now, the question, as I was talking to a very, very dear person to me today, very dear to me, the question whenever you see something that goes askew or awry, you have to ask yourself, why did this happen? Why did this happen? For example, New York City, which had been seeing lower and lower and lower numbers when it comes to violence, took a 30% increase in homicides last year. Doesn't happen in New York. Hasn't happened in decades in New York. Why? Philadelphia was closer to 35%. Why? Cities all over the United States of America saw a sharp uptick in urban violence. Why? And let's be clear about something, folks, that just because the urban violence is a more present thing, let's not forget the fact that all around in the suburbs and in hamlets and villages, violence breaks out as well, where you would not think that it would. Colorado, Indianapolis, Knoxville. I mean, just yesterday we had over the weekend, outbreaks of violence. We call them mass shootings, and we get very alarmed when we see them. But it is simply violence. What is driving the violence in our nation? What is causing that violence to proliferate in our nation? There must be a reason. Now, some people who may not be the brightest people on earth will say, because that's just the way they are. Some folks are just violent. Some people just don't give a care. Some people will say that. Some people look at the results and think that the results are the cause. For example, let's say you drive through a neighborhood and the neighborhood is dirty and trashy and foul and deteriorated. Some people will look at the condition and think that the condition is the cause. They'll say, look at that dirty, defiled, despicable neighborhood. Those people are that way. Well, that's how racists are born. You look at the condition and you make the condition the cause. That's like looking at a person who smokes and drinks and gambles and carouses and doesn't take care of themselves. And you look at them and say, yep, they were born that way. No. That is the condition. What you want to know is how they got that way. What is the cause? Let me take a quick phone call real fast. Justice in North Philadelphia. You get to jump on real fast, sir. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Nick.
Yes, sir.
While you were saying all of those things, it came to me that overall, it's been those masks that have given people extra courage to go out and do things because they know they're behind a mask. And everywhere across the country, people wearing masks, and the violence has gone up since people put masks on, and in my opinion.
So you think that it is the fact that people have a greater level of anonymity due to the masks that are being used, and that's what's driving the violence?
Especially in Chicago, because there's so many carjackings that's happening in Chicago right now and has happened since last year. It's just out of this world, and it didn't start until people were wearing these masks. I mean, it didn't go up anyway. I mean, it was happening, but it's happening so much more now in Chicago. They have hundreds and hundreds of carjackings.
Justice, I must acknowledge that I hadn't really pored over that to a great degree, but the possibility, I think you have something there, that the added anonymity of wearing a mask gives people a boldness to do things that they might not have done otherwise.
Absolutely. That's it. That's exactly it, Nick.
Look, man, we might have to go ahead and put you in some position somewhere so that you can start, trotting out these thoughts as you move forward. I appreciate that, man.
I'll start talking to you more often, Nick, and you're the only person that I've been calling here so far, so I'll just call you again, and then if I have a solution or something, I'll just call you.
Well, look, I'll do my level best to pass it on. I hope the people are listening who can make a difference besides just the two of us. Thank you for that, sir.
You're welcome. Have a great show and a great rest of the day.
I appreciate it. There's something to be said about that. I mean, first of all, I mean, and that knife cuts two ways. First, the anonymity of the mask. Wearing a mask means that people may not know who I am. And I'm going to tell you, it bothers me that wherever I go, people seem to know where I am, even though I'm wearing the mask. What is it that makes me so readily identifiable? Oh, well, I'll think about it. But people are wearing a mask, and so folks don't know who they are. And then the other part of it is, there's the other part of building anonymity. When you separate from people, when you find yourself, when you are not connected to people as you normally are, riding buses, sitting at lunch counters, working shoulder to shoulder at work. When you draw back from people and you lose the familiarity of ties that remind you that you're part of the fabric of the human family, it makes it easier to do things to people that you might not have done otherwise. There's something to be said about that this separation, what this separation has done to us, that it creates a level of distance that allows us to do things. I'll give you a good example. We talked about the Nagasaki bombing in Hiroshima. I doubt very seriously if America would have dropped bombs on Nagasaki and Hiroshima if there were people there that they thought they knew. In war, what you do is you distance yourself from people by using pejorative, derogatory terms. They're not human beings. They're, and excuse my expression, quote, they're gooks. See, when you do that, you can create more distance. The more distance you create from somebody, the easier it is to do something to them with a sense of anonymity. When I kill a fly, I don't think to myself, I wonder if that fly has family members. I wonder what that fly did at work yesterday. I wonder where that fly went to school. Well, I have no thought of that. And the more distance that there is between me and that fly, the easier it is to go ahead and squash it and not even think about it. I think our last caller gives us something to really, really pay careful attention to. My thought. All right, folks, in a few, we'll be checking in with John Roman. I'm chomping at the bit about this one because talking about why people do what they do is one of my favorite things. Let's go real quick to a first-time caller, Tim. Thank you for calling, Tim, and welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you. First-time caller, listening. Very interesting topic. Even the gentleman that made the comment about the mask and even your comment about familiarity and the fact that because of COVID and the restrictions, there's been like a sort of anti-social agenda going on where when we don't socialize, the key thing is that we're missing empathy. So empathy is erased from our characteristics or characteristic, I'm trying to use the right term here, but I think that it's just missing from the fabric of our character. As social human beings, we do have empathy because when you socialize with people, you get the differences, the personalities, and all that stuff comes together, and it makes up who we are as people. So, like, if you're in seclusion, then yes, one, your mindset begins to ponder, and you begin to think thoughts and things that may not be the proper way of thinking because now you don't have the village of people who could actually steer you in the right direction. So you say, hey, I got a great idea. This ideal is to go out and do something that I wouldn't normally do. And then with the added protection of not being discovered or the perception of not being discovered when you're doing something you're not supposed to be doing with the mask, then your courage is increased. And now you're out here doing certain things that you shouldn't be doing. And it's a detriment to us.
Look, your summation is exquisite. There's anti-socialism, and I'm not being political here, but I'm talking about depriving oneself of the crucible or being in the crucible where you have to mix with other people, where you have to engage them and be engaged by them. creates a level of, at the very least, sympathy and hopefully empathy, where you can enter into the feelings of others. The loss of empathy is the beginning of social pathology. Because if I don't sense that Tim has feelings that are akin to mine, or that Tim has thoughts and dreams akin to mine, then I can do things to Tim and not worry about it.
Right.
And you're right, this pandemic has led to that.
Interesting.
Yeah, so what does we do with it? See, the question becomes then, how do we socialize ourselves so that we can once again learn how to look across the fence at our neighbors and say, you know, if I shoot this person, their mother is going to miss them. They may have a long term of rehab. I sure wouldn't want to go through that. So maybe I ought to figure out a way to talk to them. How do we increase our humanity, Tim? That's the question.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. You know, I think if you're talking about from an urban perspective, it just starts with one block at a time, because it may not be an institutional or some form of campaign or something that can give a total resolution, but I think it does start within the neighborhood. We'll use Philadelphia as an example. It will start in the neighborhoods, you know, because there was a time where neighbors would speak to each other. There was a time that neighbors knew who kids were akin to, what parents and things like that. It's not true today. Everybody's kind of secluded. You know, they only worry about themselves. And so it starts there because it starts at home. You know, it starts, you know, with the proper teaching and principles so that people can conduct themselves in what we were taught to be a civil manner.
Well, look, I got to tell you, Tim, I take your words, I wrap them in gold leaf, and I will be handing them off to people that I know. I want to thank you for that, for those comments, and thank you for calling.
Thank you. I enjoy this show.
All righty, sir. I'll tell you what, folks, this is what we're going to do. I'm going to take a quick break because I want to have an uninterrupted conversation with our next guest. His research has inspired me since 2001 when he was with the Urban Institute. And I mean, years have passed. He's still doing good, and he didn't get any older, and I did. So I'll take the break and ask him what what kind of deal he made with Mephistopheles, what trick he's going through, and then we'll come back and I'll introduce my next guest, and we will enter into a very serious conversation. It's now just about 24 minutes away from the hour of 6 o'clock. You're listening to 900 AM, 96.1 FM. Evening Words is the name of the program. I'm Nick Taliaferro, and I'll be right back after this.
Now, a traffic update
on WURD Radio.
Watching an accident this afternoon on the Boulevard northbound side between the Schuylkill and Wissahickon Avenue. The right lane is blocked there. Traffic is jammed up. Accident on the PA Turnpike westbound between Ben Salem and Willow Grove. The right lane's blocked there and we're jammed. In Cheltenham, an accident on Ogons Avenue and Cheltenham Avenue. Police on the scene directing traffic. Schuylkill eastbound, heavy glide wind to the Boulevard and a bit stop and go. Spring Garden Street to the Vine Expressway. Westbound backing up the Vine to the Boulevard. North on 95, we slowed down Betsy Ross Bridge to Bridge Street. Southbound, we back up through the construction zone, Coppin Avenue to Bridge. And in New Jersey, north on 295, construction at the 42 freeway has the right lane blocked. Report brought to you by Audible. Freshen up your playlist this spring with Audible Plus. Listen all you want to thousands of select Audible originals, audiobooks, podcasts, and more. Start a free 30-day Audible Plus trial when you sign up at audible.com. That's audible.com. And for more traffic information, log on to sigalert.com. I'm Jason Lee with your Philadelphia area traffic.
Hey WURD family, have you heard of the new Go to Know campaign? If not, here is the deal. WURD Radio has partnered with the Colorectal Cancer Alliance, Penn Medicine, LabCorp, and the Independence Blue Cross Foundation to present the Go to Know Fit Kit Screening Campaign. The Go to Know campaign is an at-home screening test for colon cancer. Yup, you heard me right. You can take your own stool sample and mail it back for testing. Did you know colon cancer, if caught early, is 100% preventable? African Americans are 20% more likely to get colon cancer cancer and about 40% more likely to die from it than most other groups. Plus, it is recommended you get screened if you are 45 years of age or older. So for the next 6 months, you can go to wordradio.com and click on the Go to Know banner for your free at-home screening test. It's that simple. Again, just go to wordradio.com, click on the Go to Know banner, and request your free at-home screening test. That's it. Go to Know today.
This is not a fad for us.
We will not resume our regular programming when things die down. We're not black to help our bottom line or because it's politically correct. We're not joining a fight. This has been our fight, our message, our people. Black lives have always mattered here. We are
Undeniably,
indefatigably, unapologetically, permanently Black Talk Media.
WURD.
Hello, this is City Council member Helen Gim. I'm calling with important information about COVID-19 vaccines. In the coming weeks, all Philadelphians over the age of 16 will be eligible for vaccination. However, you must be registered with the city to get vaccinated. Register today at www.phila.gov and fill out the vaccine interest form or email covid@phila.gov. If you can't complete the online form, call 311 to get registered.
WURD TV. We're streaming live video of this conversation right now.
Tune in on YouTube at onWURD
or on Facebook at ForWord.
WURD TV.
Black Talk Media. You're listening to Evening Words,
hosted by Nick Taliaferro,
exclusively on WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD.
Welcome back to you, ladies and gentlemen. It's now 20 minutes away from the hour of 6 o'clock. This is WURD Radio, and I'm glad to have with me a gentleman whom I had the occasion to meet 20 years ago when I was working here in the city on ex-offender reentry. At that time, he worked for the Urban Institute. The research that he did, I had been totally unfamiliar with, but it was stunning. It helped me shift my perspective in ways to apply criminal justice and then ideas and thoughts as to how we can go about restructuring our society. He currently is a senior fellow in the Economics, Justice, and Society group at the National Opinions and Research Center at the University of Chicago. He has done work in his research focuses on the economics of crime and juvenile and adult justice, prison reentry, and alternative sentencing, and how justice systems work or how they fail to work. He's a co-editor of 2 books, a lecturer at the University of Pennsylvania, and an affiliated professor at Georgetown University. Please make welcome Dr. John Roman. Dr. Roman, it's good to have you with us again, and it's good to talk to you again, sir.
Oh, thanks for having me on. It's my pleasure.
You know, we start with an article that you wrote recently, and when I read the first line where it says, a couple of weeks ago I wrote about the great American crime decline. I'm pretty sure that when people hear the expression crime decline, they look at Dr. Roman and say, have you been paying attention, sir?
Yeah.
Can you contextualize that statement for us?
Yeah, I mean, the really 30-second history lesson is just to say that violence in America was pretty stable in the 50s and shoots up in the 60s and 70s and just grows just dramatically. And it's everywhere, every city, suburbs, urban areas. And that stays at this remarkably high level throughout the 80s. There's 2,200 homicides a year in New York City. There's 25 homicides around the country.
I forgot the bad old days of New York City. Totally forgot.
110,000 cars are stolen a year, every year in New York City. It's astonishing. And in about 1991, this trend slows down and reverses, and it does it really dramatically. So between 1990 and 2000, these numbers fall in half. And by now, instead of by 2019, and we need to stop the clock at 2019 because 2020 is a totally different story.
Right.
As of 2019, homicides in New York City go from 2,200 a year to 300. Cars stolen in New York City go for over 100,000 a year in 1990 to about 8,000, right? So in many places, the violence, the crime, the disorder, it falls back to levels that we haven't seen since the 1960s. This isn't true everywhere. This is just on average across the country. And so this big period is referred to by people who study crime as the Great Crime Decline. And we have spent a lot of years trying to understand what happened so that we can replicate what worked and continue the decline.
Well, God knows if ever there was a need to find out what happened so that we can replicate it, it is April the 19th, 2021, because we are in trouble. Have we gotten close to deciphering what I remember the Great Crime Decline? I remember interviewing Bill Bratton, the former police commissioner of New York City, and listening to him talk about the approach to reducing crime by honing in on small quality of life crimes, which of course led to what we now call stop and frisk, which is a problem of its own sort. But was he on to something, and is that, God forbid, is that something that you think we need to do again?
I would, respectfully disagree with all of his conclusions. The idea was really based in a lot of bias. The idea that we need to police disorder, that, they talk about disorder being, oh, there's abandoned cars here, there's graffiti here, there's trash on the ground. But what they really mean is social disorder. And what they really mean is people hanging out on corners who they find troubling. So that, there are a lot of code words in that broken windows theory, which was theory, that are disturbing. And there's no evidence that it stopped the crime increase of the 70s and 80s and caused the crime decline. In fact, it was probably counterproductive. A lot of the things that happened, stop, question, and frisk in New York City last decade were up to 800,000 mainly young people, mainly young men of color were stopped, questioned, and frisked on New York City streets. And there's no evidence that that was effective in bringing down crime either. What stopped the crime is all kinds of things that had nothing to do with the criminal justice system, which is what makes it so interesting, right? If you think about why there's less crime, it's things like the cell phone. So what the cell phone does is the most dangerous place in any city. I don't care if it's a big city, small city, rural, New York City, Philadelphia. Open air drug markets are the most dangerous place in any city. And just by having the advent of the cell phones over the last 15 years, really, allows people to make those drug transactions without going to an open air drug market. And it means that people aren't going to these violent places and being victimized. It means the dealers aren't fighting in the drug market over clients. And it really, that alone ratcheted down a lot of the violence. And a lot of the crime decline explanation is just stuff like that, just things that happened in society that had nothing to do with criminal justice system or our policy.
Dr. Roman, I don't know if you would be surprised to know that most people have a very counterintuitive view of that. They think the very opposite was the fact that the cell phone increased criminality. Mm-hmm. But you're saying that by removing people from a crucible where they are rubbing into each other, bumping into each other, rubbing shoulders, that it reduced it. What other myths or misperceptions might be driving us to conclusions that will take us down the wrong pathway in trying to confront our criminal problems?
Well, I think the big one, there's a lot of them, right? Criminal justice is just full of myths and full of zombie research findings that don't hold up.
That's in your article there.
Yeah, there's dozens of them, what you see on CSI, whether it's CSI, New York or Miami or whatever, you watch one of these cop shows, and almost none of what you see there is actually true. The technology isn't there. The data sharing isn't there. That's the biggest myth of all, right? Which is that, and I don't mean to disparage anybody who's serving today, wearing a uniform, wearing a badge, carrying a gun, walking the streets, trying to keep people safe. I do not mean to disparage them at all. But the idea that police prevent crime is in and of itself something of a myth, right? What police do is they stop crimes by getting involved in them as they're happening. And maybe by being around and the gun and the badge and the uniform deters people from committing a crime at that place at that time. But that's totally different from preventing crime. Prevention is about removing risk conditions. It's about doing something about, concentrated disadvantage and intense multi-generational poverty. It's about doing things about structural racism in our systems, especially in our criminal justice system. It's about giving people opportunities. And our police aren't doing those things. And they really didn't contribute a whole lot to the crime decline. And so looking to them in this moment, after we just had the biggest year-over-year homicide increase in American history in 2020, looking to them to be the solution is probably looking in the wrong direction.
So if we're not looking at them to be the solution, and of course we're not saying that they are, quote, the problem, let's put our fingers on some things that are causative, that we can begin to correct. I mean, one of the things you make mention of is that many people have this idea that crime is based upon the fact that some people are just criminal while other people are just not criminals, that this false binary that exists. Is that, am I seeing it correctly? Is that one of the mistakes that we're making?
Yeah, that's a huge problem, and we all do it. We are all guilty of it at one time or another, of judging somebody as being, oh, that's a criminal person. People commit criminal acts, and you know, most men, it's not true of women, but most men at some time in their life will commit criminal acts. It doesn't make them a criminal. I think it's almost even by race, by the age of 21, I think something like a third of all young men have been arrested for something around, right? So the idea that then people
except
are
the two of us, of course, but continue.
Well, except for you, sir. But we don't talk about that anymore. No, but it doesn't make you a criminal, right? And the idea that we're going to somehow magically create a mechanism that allows us to see who the bad actors are, who the criminals are, and scoop them up and get them off the street, and the rest of us are good law-abiding citizens and will be safe as soon as those people are gone. It's just an absolute myth, because there aren't us in them. There's just us. And we need to figure out how to help the people among us who are most at risk and most susceptible to criminal friends, and criminal activities, and help them find a better path.
So enhancing, beefing up, fine-tuning policing is not the primary thing. It's dealing with social and civic issues that drive criminality. One writer, it may have been you, made mention of the fact that when there's an intense community disinvestment, that people tend to perceive that they're on their own, and people who feel that they are on their own become desperate, and desperate people do things that they ordinarily would not do. Am I reading that right?
Yes, that's absolutely true. I mean, people understand where they are. They understand whether they live in a place where it's reasonable to have hope, or whether, you know, the best you can hope for is just to get by. You understand whether you're in a place that's growing and getting better, or at least not getting worse, versus a place that's just in decay and disarray and has been that way forever, and there's no reason to think it's going to ever be anything else. It's hard to build a sense of community in those places. And all of those sorts of things, the way we interact with each other, what we in the criminology world call, you know, because we got to put a big label on everything, we call it collective efficacy, right? And so collective efficacy is just the idea that me and my neighbors are willing to work together to solve problems. There's a famous piece of research that was done in Chicago looking at neighborhoods in Chicago that had long generational histories of decline. And what they found was that in places that were still declining, people weren't willing to work together to solve their problems. And places that were stable or getting better, people were. And so what it means is you have to get people to work together to move a place into the right direction, but you can't convince them to do that if all the evidence around them says there's no hope, there's no point.
You listed some things that appear to be so innocuous and so innocent that people would say, oh, that doesn't really make a difference when it comes to reducing crime. You talked about, in the topic of routine activities, just altering routine activities in community. And it made sense after I looked at it. I said, why didn't I think of this? And then I realized because I don't work for a NORC. Right. you made mention of the fact that some activities, for example, increasing in-home activities, that keeps people away from being targets. Air conditioning. Right. I remember growing up in the heart of North Philadelphia where it was so hot in these brick row homes, you had to go outside, which increased the likelihood that you might intersect with someone in an untoward way. Having money on your phone or money online, that it decreases targeting. These little things, are others seeing them as you're seeing them? And if so, how do we deploy them in such a way that we can begin to drive the numbers down?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. The problem with the science of crime is that we think about these things one at a time.
Yeah.
Right. So there's people out there who are doing studies. They say the less cash you carry, the less of a target you are. That makes total sense. People understand that. People are starting to do almost all their business electronically these days, and so that makes everybody a little bit less risk. The idea of just air conditioning, just people being in their homes, that creates this big, you're too young, my friend, to remember this, but there was a political furor back in the 80s about explicit song lyrics and explicit video games.
Mm-hmm.
These, Doom or whatever the game was at the time, we're going to, rot the kids' minds and make them more violent. So it's easy to create these sort of partisan messages. But what probably happened instead was kids spent their time at home in front of a video game. Now they can play those games with all their peers. They're all on headsets. They're talking. They're yapping at each other while they play. And in many ways, that keeps them a lot safer because they're not out. They're not in dangerous places. They're not interacting with other kids. They're not creating beefs. They're not fighting and feuding over nothing, which is what all teenagers do everywhere. So it makes them safer. So how do we leverage that for the future? I don't know. I don't know because it's all things that have nothing to do with what the government does. They're all things about how we collectively manage our days and how we work together.
For those of you just joining us, we're speaking with Dr. John Roman. Dr. Roman is a researcher with NORC at the University of Chicago, where he studies these issues and, of course, provides information and data for those who are trying to make a difference. And in this conversation, we're actually trying to make a difference. I grew up in Philadelphia in the 1960s. And at that time, the homicide rate for young people due to gang violence was astronomical.
Yeah.
The thing that changed it was not the government figuring out new things, but they did things. Don't get me wrong, they did things. Mm-hmm. But it was grassroots groups coming together to make a difference, doing some of the things that you point out in your research. The same thing happened with the Boston Miracle with Eugene Rivers and the guys up there. And all around the country, whenever you see groups radically reducing violent behavior, it's typically grassroots. Are we at a place now where we might be able to see it, or are we still depending too heavily on government to make the changes that more organic groups need to make?
I think we're beginning to see it. I think the last 3 or 4 years, there's been a recognition of this. You and I talked beforehand about a professor at Princeton, Pat Sharkey, who has a book out in the last couple of years where he talks about how having more nonprofit community-based organizations in a neighborhood reduces violence just by having that presence there, by having people in the neighborhood, mm-hmm. being with the people on behalf of the people reduces violence. I think the big story of 2020 is going to be two things. And we haven't talked about guns. We have to talk about guns. But the other bit of it, and that played a big part in this incredible rise of violence we just saw in 2020. But the other thing that happened that is really underreported is that, it wasn't just that we all stayed home. And it wasn't just that we couldn't go to work or school. And for a lot of young men who were involved in violence in Philadelphia and in every city, not being able to go to school, not being able to go to work, not being in that training program are important positive influences in their life that were taken away. But also, they didn't go to church. They didn't go to the community center. They didn't go to the nonprofit organization that's helping them understand their trauma because their friend got shot, that is helping them with the physical impairment because they got hurt on the job or they got hurt in a fight or something like that. All these positive influences in their lives were taken away. And they're left sitting at home with all this cumulative trauma of all the things that have happened in these neighborhoods. And the guys that they're maddest at are right there. They're just down the street. And they're home too. And that's a recipe for violence. That goes away a little bit when we all start going back to work and back to school and back to our lives. And that's good and that'll help. But what we have to recognize is how powerful those positive forces are, that they're so powerful that when they got taken away, we experienced a year of violence that we've never experienced before. That should be a very loud, very clear message that we need to invest more in those things, more in those community-based institutions, those nonprofits, more in church-based programs to help kids, more in the schools, more in the rec centers, more into the training program.
And we'll take a break here, and then we come back. We will talk about guns, and we'll talk about why you think the 2030s are going to be safer than the 2020s. The question isn't simply defund the police. It's not so much what you're taking money from, it's where you're putting money to. And you're saying we need to invest in some of these elements that have been disabled and dismantled by the quarantine.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
All right, folks, when we come back, we'll continue our conversation with Dr. John Roman. I'm telling you, ladies and gentlemen, there are solutions, there are remedies, there are avenues that will allow us to address the situations that we are facing and absorbing. We'll continue in this conversation with our guest and with you. The time is now just a minute away from 6. Stay with us. We'll return after this. Hey folks, WURD members are invited to tune in every second Tuesday of the month with me, Nick, for a chance to win a book bundle of the newest releases from Kensington Publishing's culturally oriented Dafina imprint.
We are people of resilience, so let's protect our lives with vaccines we can trust. We can do this.
To learn more about COVID-19 vaccines, visit cdc.gov/coronavirus. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
Okay, Her's new fire potato chips and cheese curls, they are spicy. Whew, they're hottest snacks yet, hold on. Whew, but you know, it's not just heat. There's some nice sweet and savory stuff going on too. Ooh, there's that heat again. It burns, but it burns so tasty. Ooh, that's hot. Find Her's Fire Snacks at your store today. Whew, taste the flavor, feel the heat, break out the Her's.
Join WURD Radio CEO Sarah Lomax Reese on Wednesday, April 21st at 1 p.m. for a special virtual broadcast in celebration of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Month. Sarah will be leading a conversation with African American C-suite executives, exploring the challenges and opportunities of creating real diversity, equity, and inclusion in corporate America. Panelists include Delilah Wilson Scott, Chief Diversity Officer at Comcast and President of the Comcast Foundation, Michael Rashid, Commerce Director for the City of Philadelphia, and Ramona Risco Benson, Director of Corporate and Community Relations at PICO. Tune in Wednesday, April 21st at 1 p.m. for this important conversation. For more information, visit wordradio.com and click on the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Month banner. Brought to you by Comcast, Bank of America, PICO, Thomas Jefferson University, and Jefferson Health.
Lifting every voice
till earth and heaven ring.
This is WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD Philadelphia.
Black Talk Media.
WURD TV. We're streaming live video of this conversation right now.
Tune in on YouTube at onWURD
or on Facebook at ForWord.
WURD TV.
Black Talk Media.
You're listening to Evening Words,
hosted by Nick Taliaferro,
exclusively on WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD.
1 minute after the hour of 6 o'clock, final hour of Evening Words. Coming along at 6 o'clock, of course, you save space for Sincerely Sarita. She comes your way at 7 o'clock with her particular gentle brand of piercing and penetrating analysis in radio. Can't find a better way to spend 2 hours from 7 o'clock to 9 o'clock than with Sincerely Sarita. Keep your dial set where you got it for the best in two-way conversation right here on WURD. In the studio with me, virtually at least, is Dr. John Roman. He's a fellow at the Academy of Experimental Criminology, and as such, he serves on the editorial board of the Journal of Experimental Criminology and Drug Court Review. He takes a wide-ranging look at crime and violence from the perspective of a researcher, not with somebody who has cherished ideas that he's simply trying to prove by gathering the data that makes the point he wants to make, and we're glad to have him. Welcome back to you, Dr. Roman.
Thank you, sir.
You made mention of guns a minute ago, and how that has been one of the drivers of the violence of 2020. And we'll take a look at 2020. And we encourage you to make your calls if you'd like to at 215-634-8065. 215-634-8065. But let's talk a little bit about guns. You know, my NRA friends would say, now, Nick, when you talk to them, make sure you tell Dr. Roman that guns don't kill people. People do. So are guns really driving it, or is the spirit of murder driving the desire and the need to get the guns? Which goes first, the ox or the cart?
Yeah, I mean, this is always the question. I'm a big believer, though, that if there's no ox, the cart's not going anywhere. I guess that would be frame the metaphor.
Well put.
The gun is the thing, and the gun's always been the thing. So in 2020, beginning in March, we had the pandemic, we had the sort of lockdown, shutdown, quarantine, whatever you want to call it, where everybody stayed home. And the first thing that happened in the retail markets is that the number of guns that were purchased in this country absolutely skyrockets, right? We normally, in a normal, have 600,000 or 700,000 guns sold in a month. And beginning in March, we had over 1 million. So every month in 20
sold in a month?
In a month, there are 1 million guns sold
Holy smoke.
in the United States of America. And so that's 500,000 more guns were sold every month in March through February of this year, in a year. 500,000 guns every month. That's more than 6 million new guns entering into civilian hands in the United States.
Is this not counting illegal guns, Dr. Roman?
This is not counting illegal guns. These are manufactured guns that go to a federally licensed firearm dealer and are sold going through the background check system. That's a lot of guns, right? And it doesn't take a lot of, we call it leakage, right? For those guns to leak into the criminal marketplace, for them to have a huge, huge negative effect. 1% of those guns getting out of civilian law-abiding gun owner hands into the criminal marketplace is 60,000 guns. And the way that the way these neighborhoods work, it used to be when somebody had a gun, they'd keep it in their waistband, and when it got hot, they'd pull up their shirt, show you the gun, they would brandish it, and everybody would run away. And the thing about that gun was, it probably didn't work. It was just for show, right? Or maybe there's a gun that all the kids know about, and if something happens, they run and get the gun, but that gun probably doesn't work. That's how it was 20 years ago. It worked enough that we had a lot of shootings. But now the guns are flooding, absolutely flooding these streets. So that gun in that guy's waistband, that gun shoots. And now there isn't like one community gun for the kids to run and get when things go sideways. Everybody's got a gun. They're so easy to get. They're so cheap. And they're getting cheaper because that 6 million extra guns, those guns are just beginning to leak into the streets. And they're going to continue to leak over the next couple of years. And it's a really scary situation.
A gun changes your mood. I want you to think of every James Bond movie you've ever seen. Tuxedo, scantily clad woman in the background, and I want you to replace the gun in his hand with a carrot.
Right.
Completely different mindset. A gun makes you want to act in a different way. So I readily acknowledge that. But before we take our first call, and we open the phone lines at 215-634-8065, you make mention in this article that you think that 2030 will bring us back to a time of a reduction in violence. Is it because we are just so tired that we run out of steam, or do you see factors at play in the background that you think will drive the numbers down?
So, my expectation is this year is going to be bad. I said this back in January, and so far this year has been been a terrible year. It's been worse than last year in most cities, and I think in Philly. And I don't think next year will be better. The rest of the decade's probably what it is. The last 10 years were pretty flat, a lot of violence, not going up or down. I think we go back to that. But we are about to enter an age of surveillance, and we need to start thinking about this. We need to start thinking about how much what they call, the forensic people call, biometric information. And that's just facial recognition in closed circuit TV, and the cameras around town can now identify who you are based on the patterns of your face. That the forensic technology is expanding really rapidly, and our ability to use that technology to stop crime in positive ways is going to go way up. But the threats that imposes on our collective liberty, our freedom, our ability to be anonymous in public, our ability to just go about our lives without, thinking that somebody is watching us is going to go away. And yeah, that might help the violence problem, but it's going to come at a big cost.
So there are people who are saying that because of surveillance, because of the technology, that we are losing some of the elements of our humanity, which decreases the empathy, which drives up the willingness to be violent, because John Roman doesn't mean anything to me. He's, and so do you see the technology?
I'm a little more optimistic than that. I don't know that I would fully buy into that story. I think we see the humanity in each other. I don't think that's changed much. I think the temperature of the rhetoric has just been so extreme the last 4 years that it's going to take a while to dial that back and start to see each other as people again, instead of as just a blue person or a red person. I think the gun is the big problem, because the gun isn't just that it makes you braver than you are. It gives you something to do when you're afraid. People carry guns because they think somebody that they're afraid of is carrying a gun, right? And it used to be that it was hard to get a gun, so you figured that guy probably didn't have a gun and I'm okay, but I'm scared. Now he's got a gun because they're everywhere. And so now you're carrying two.
That's so true.
And you have no control over your actions when you're terrified. And that's really what I'm worried about.
Man, that scares me, because I know somebody in a small state right under this one who bought a gun and carries it just for that reason. We go to the phone lines now. Our guest is Dr. John Roman. Dr. John Roman is a scholar and an educator. He is a senior fellow with the National Opinions Research Center at the University of Chicago. We're talking about violence, criminality in our culture and society. 215-634-8065 is the number. Joe in North Philadelphia, you are our first caller for our guest. Welcome to the show, and thank you for your call.
And thank you for taking my call. Listen,
Absolutely.
I want to say, I haven't heard you say anything about education, about educating children to the immoral and vices. See, I think that our society is really headed for the rocks. I hate to say it, but as compared to other societies where they emphasize more of home virtues, spiritualized virtues, you don't find the same type of problems in cultures that educate their children. Now, our children, I think they're being fed, in some cases, a bunch of goods. Playing games, blah, 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 this, that, and the other. They don't teach them how to write cursive. They don't teach them how to count. Mm-hmm. They got this new core mathematics, and they also don't teach them how to read. So I think it starts when you're young. If someone would have told me when I was young about don't fornicate, stealing is wrong. These moral virtues, I think, because of our liberal society, has created a lot of this that we see now.
Let's get a response about education. And incidentally, Joe, maybe they didn't tell you not to fornicate because they were so busy telling me, because I sure heard it a whole lot. So, but the education piece is vital. I mean, what part does it play in correcting our bent? And thank you for that call, Joe. What part does it play in correcting our bent toward violence and antisocial behavior, Dr. Roman?
I mean, it plays a role in two ways, right? In the way we think about it in a policy world. So education is, I talked early on about whether the police prevent crime or whether something else prevents crime. And education clearly prevents crime. Education takes away the biggest barrier, the biggest risk to young people, which is not being able to compete in the economic marketplace, not being able to get a job, not being able to have opportunity, not being able to have economic mobility, to do better than maybe their parents did. So education is absolutely the cornerstone, the foundation of any effort to try and help the neighborhoods that have experienced the most violence. That's what we would call human capital piece. The social part of it is that we've started, look, I appreciate Joe's point, right? And I don't think it's a conservative versus liberal thing, whether we teach values and virtues. I just think we live in a secular society, and we have to accept the reality of the fact that the virtues and values are going to be a little different than maybe they would be in a parochial setting. But we have learned a lot about social emotional learning, that teaching kids how to interact with each other in positive ways, to care about the effect that your words and your actions have on your fellow students, your peers, your teachers, your family, your friends. And we've developed a lot of curriculums that have found their way into public schools. And the evidence is overwhelming that if you teach kids how to be sort of, social emotional learners instead of just, learn the numbers, kids do better in all kinds of dimensions, and they get more engaged in school because their peers are create a more positive environment together for everybody to thrive into. So there are definitely things that we can do that I think are going right down the road that I think Joe would like us to go.
Thank you for that call, Joe. We're speaking with Dr. John Roman. We go now to Germantown, where Bree is waiting to have the next comment. Bree, thank you for joining us, and welcome to the program.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi. I just want to ask a question about facial recognition.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've been hearing just a few things, and maybe the guest could clarify. That facial recognition has disproportionately already targeted people of color, and there have been cases where a person will go into a drugstore, for example, and the facial recognition buzzer goes off or something like that, and the person has to leave the store because they might be shoplifting or something like that. And I know there's a couple cases that I've heard about, I don't know whether this is true or not, that it's already targeting people of color. I just wanted to know if that's true. Has anybody done any studies on who's getting recognized and who's not? So that was my question.
Good question, Bree. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fair question. So I don't think we know enough yet to know whether Bree's concerns are widespread or they're just in narrow pockets. So some cities are so concerned about this. I think Oakland has outlawed the use of facial recognition by their police department. So there's a growing awareness at least at the city level that this is a problem, this is technology that could be used in the wrong way. It is absolutely true that every time a technology comes along, it is used disproportionately against people of color. And so there's reason to be suspicious that will happen here as well. I mean, we certainly see, we could talk forever about DNA and how that system is used to sort of perpetuate biases in who's incarcerated. So it's like anything else, right? There's an opportunity for this to be really helpful. There are people that are really violent and really dangerous, and we need to figure out who they are to capture them before they hurt people and to get them off the street. And this is a technology that can help with that. But the dangers of it in terms of being used to create sort of structural biases that private companies could use it to stereotype you the minute you walk in the door and have their employees treat you differently or call the police on you and, thinking that you are profiled as being a shoplifter or something. Those are all reasonable things to be concerned about. So raising these issues with your local public officials is a really good way to go. I mean, Philadelphia could certainly consider this, getting in front of this and just saying we're not going to let PPD use this technology until we figure out how to just use it for good.
And thank you for that call, Bree. Before we get to our next call, I wanted to ask you a question about the violence that we are seeing in smaller towns, suburbs. Philadelphia has a mass shooting, but we do it on the installment plan. One here, one there, one around the corner. But other places, like Indianapolis or other towns, they'll have a mass shooting. And I'm wondering, John, are the same metrics driving the violence? Is this concomitant violence? Is this the same violence that we see in the suburbs that we're seeing in the urban areas? Because there are different factors at play in the two different areas. So how would you explicate that?
I mean, I would say the only common denominator is the gun, and even the gun's a little different.
Back to that gun, huh?
Yeah, back to the gun. But no, I think it's different. I think most of the violence in Philadelphia and other, what we urban violence, street violence, is mainly people who know each other, at least know of each other. The strangers who get involved, who are victimized, tend to be people who are bystanders who were just in the wrong place. In Boulder, in Atlanta, in Indianapolis, the strangers were the targets. And so in that sense, it's very different. It's not somebody you know, it's somebody you have a bias against. It's a population of people. The guns are different. The guns in these mass shootings tend to be AR-15s, right? And maybe the most cynical naming ever, America's sporting rifle, is a semi-automatic weapon that can fire a clip in, a second.
Wow.
And can be easily modified for a big clip and shoot 30 rounds at a time. And these have no purpose. There's no legitimate purpose for these weapons. There's no reason why civilians should own a semi-automatic weapon of this sort. No, they're not allowed to own them in any. So I get tongue-tied. It's so frustrating. Civilians aren't allowed to own these weapons in any other nation. So why are they allowed here? What are they good for? They're good for mass shootings. The problem is that, and I give a lot of credit to the kids from Marjorie Stoneman Douglas who've really been leading the charge against gun violence in this country, because they've really made a point of saying, look, our shooting was different from the shootings you see in the street, but we have to address both of these things at the same time. And I worry that the mass shootings are horrible. They grab our attention, but they're 1% of the shootings each year in America, 1.5%. They're just a tiny little proportion. What's happening in Philadelphia every day is a much bigger story and a more important place to start.
Let's take our next call. Time is fleeting, so we get right to you in North Philadelphia. Spread love. Thank you for calling. Welcome to our conversation with Dr. John Roman.
God bless, Brother Nick. I pray you're well. God bless Dr. John Roman. I pray you're well. Thanks for coming in. Of course, God bless our brother Eric Nixon, DJ Frosty Phoenix on the boards. Always doing an amazing job. God bless everyone suffering. God bless everyone working to make it better. God bless everyone incarcerated, especially incarcerated falsely free Mumia. I know we're up against the break, so I'm going to keep it real brief. I got two questions real quick. Question number one. Thank you. Are there any studies being done or conducted that correlate violence to nutrition or lack thereof, specifically nutrients in the food decreasing horribly, and the fact that the FDA now authorizes and allows the sale of cloned meat on the shelves without being labeled? Number two, what's considered violence? Are the heinous actions of governments and the corporate industrial pollution and murder of people considered violence as well? I'd like both those questions addressed, please. Thank you.
Well stated.
Oh, those are two hard questions.
Yeah.
So let me take them head on, right? So the issue of genetically modified foods is a huge international story. A lot of American agricultural products, a lot of our meat doesn't get exported to and imported into Europe because they have prohibitions against genetically modified foods. So there's certainly a story there. And there's certainly a story that all kinds of things that we didn't think about in the past poisoned our citizens in ways that probably caused the crime increase, right? So one of the stories that we talk about a lot is lead from lead gasoline. Through the 70s, when you pumped gas into your car, regular leaded gas into your car, you put all kinds of lead into the atmosphere. That lead gets into the bloodstream of kids. And it damages their prefrontal cortex, it damages their brain, and one of the things that damage causes is a lack of impulse control. So there's a lot of thinking that one of the reasons why crime declined in the 90s was because we took lead out of gasoline. So is it plausible that 20 years from now we're saying genetically modified foods had the same effect on impulse control and violence? I don't expect that to happen, but I think given what's happened historically, it's not out of the realm of possibilities. The other one about state violence, I think, there's a growing segment of the criminology community that thinks about incarceration, incapacitation as state-sponsored violence. And so there's a voice for that perspective that is growing in the academic circles who think about crime policy. I think there is a lot of violence within the prison system, and a lot of the way we treat citizens on the street is far too violent in terms of police use of force. We do a survey every year called the the police public contact survey that the U.S. Justice Department administers, and it estimates that every year there are 1 million uses of force by police, 1 million each year. And that can be anything from just making you get handcuffed and pushing you into a police car to what we're seeing on trial in Minneapolis today. So yeah, I think less violence all around is absolutely, violence begets violence. Less violence in any of these quarters is a good start.
Well, Dr. Roman, I mean, obviously we just scratched the surface in a conversation like this. I go back to your statement where you said 2030 is going to be better, or at least you perceive it as you said, when you're in your dotage, you'll be speaking about this. Give us the lay of the land for why we can hope that 2030, I know you said something about surveillance and so forth, but yeah. I mean, I'm not sure if that will be the magic bullet, no pun intended, but. Right.
Let me give you a much more positive story, right? So I worry about the surveillance. It's a blunt instrument. There's all kinds of things going on in forensics that I think will help. I think, so one of our responses to the pandemic and the violence that we've seen in the last month is the Biden administration's American Rescue Plan that invests $500 billion in state and local governments. And it's really the first time in generations that we've taken seriously the role of local and county governments in improving the lives of the citizens of those places. I think it's a great start. I think resources that are delivered locally are absolutely the solutions to these problems of violence. Violence is a hyper-local thing. It can be bad on this block and not on the next.
True.
You never talk about a city as being violent because anybody in a city knows that there are parts of the city that are perfectly safe. The worst, the cities at their worst, half the blocks report no crime in a given year. So we need local institutions above all else. We need better community-based organizations, better nonprofits. Those are funded, directed, helped, supported by local governments. So funding into local governments, I think, is a really positive thing. And then we've learned all kinds of things about how to intervene with all kinds of problems we didn't know much about 20 years ago. And the learning curve is still steep, but when it comes to alcohol disorders, drug use disorders, mental health problems, we're making a lot of progress. We see the problems. We see fentanyl in Kensington and Philadelphia, the epicenter of the opioid epidemic. So there's a lot to be solved there, but we've made a lot of progress. And I could give you a full list of things that weren't true 5 years ago. We couldn't cure hepatitis C 5 years ago. And now a fatal illness, the only solution of which was $1 million liver transplant, is completely curable today. And there's all kinds of advances like that that are coming down the pike that I think if we really focus on this problem as a problem that's local, where supports are the answer rather than punishment, then I think we can make a lot of progress by 2030.
Dr. Roman, you give us hope. Our guest has been Dr. John K. Roman, Senior Fellow in the Economics, Justice, and Society Group at the National Opinions Research Center at the University of Chicago. He conducts research in the economics of crime, prisoner reentry, alternative sentencing, and how justice systems work or how they fail to work. And he's the co-editor of 2 books and a lecturer at the University of Pennsylvania and also at Georgetown University. Dr. Roman, it's been too long. I hope we won't wait this long to do it again. My best to Dr. Katerina Roman, and I look forward to speaking to you again soon.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for having me on.
Real pleasure. Thank you for that. All right, folks, we'll take a break here, and then we'll come back, and we'll chase this around the track a little bit more. You're listening to WURD AM 996.1 FM. We shall return after these messages.
Temple University, Philadelphia's public university, is committed to meaningful change that resonates throughout our community. We are investing more than $1 million in anti-racism education and programming, including creating a Center for Anti-Racism Research, developing a bridge program for high school students in North Philadelphia, and expanding our Department of Africology and African American Studies, which is the first in the country to offer a doctoral program. Our students are the next generation of innovators and leaders championing a better tomorrow. WURD is supported by Temple University, Philadelphia's public university. At Temple, we aim to make college accessible for all. That's why we launched the Cecil B. Moore Scholars Program, a bridge program for high school students in North Philadelphia that offers pre-college support, including tutoring, career exploitation, and the opportunity to take a free course at Temple. It's part of our commitment to cultivate leaders from our city and to support all students in reaching their full potential.
I'm Henry Louis Gates Jr. We are people of resilience. No matter what happens, we fight through the pain. We protect our traditions. We uphold our excellence. So let's protect our lives with vaccines we can trust. We can do this.
To learn more about COVID-19 vaccines, visit cdc.gov/coronavirus. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
Between family dinners, bedtime stories, and study sessions, Pico knows that life never stops moving. So if your energy bills are adding up, Pico has programs available, like new payment options, flexible billing, and financial assistance to help you manage your bills and your budget for the essential energy you and your family need. Learn how Pico can help keep your life moving with payment arrangements. See if you qualify at pico.com/help.
Hi, this is Councilmember Derek Green with new information about COVID vaccines. Soon, all Philadelphians over the age of 16 will be eligible for vaccination. However, you must be registered with the city to get vaccinated. Register today at phila.gov and fill out the vaccine interest form or email covid@phila.gov. If you can't complete the form, call 311 to get registered. Your information is confidential. We all want a healthier, better Philadelphia. Get registered today.
At Social Security, we are always thinking of ways to save you time and make things easier. That's why we created My Social Security. A My Social Security account allows you to access your earnings history and benefits information, request a replacement Social Security card, get a proof of income letter, estimate and apply for benefits, and more. Save time. Go online. Open a My Social Security account at ssa.gov/myaccount. Social Security. Securing today and tomorrow.
Produced at U.S. taxpayer expense.
WURD TV. We're streaming live video of this conversation right now.
Tune in on YouTube at onWURD
or on Facebook at ForWord.
WURD TV.
Black Talk Media. You're listening to Evening Words,
hosted by Nick Taliaferro,
exclusively on WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD.
All right, good people, it's now 6:30 o'clock. Let me give you some redirection as far as what you can expect to have coming in your direction real soon. Wait a minute. Okay, here we go. We want to invite you to listen to a special panel, intergenerational discussion featuring 13 Black sorority sisters, hosted by Lonnie Love, White House leaders Dr. Marcel Nunez-Smith, and U.S. Surgeon General Vivek Murthy, and get up-to-date COVID facts for our Black communities. Now, we're calling all sisters to join this conversation on Making It Plain, what Black America needs to know about COVID-19, the variants, and the vaccines. Now, that's today, Monday the 19th, at 7 o'clock Eastern Time. Now, all you have to do is head to facebook.com/blackdoctor.org or youtube.com/blackdoctor.org. blackdoctor.org. Aha, put that dot in the wrong place just to throw me off. Let me give you that information one more time. And that is head to facebook.com/blackdoctor.org or youtube.com/blackdoctor.org. All right, good people, conduct yourselves accordingly and get the information that you need to keep your health on the upswing. Great conversation there about violence. You know, one of the things that I lean in the direction of is this, that situations and people can change. I know of an individual who was convicted of murder who will be getting out of prison soon. He's been in prison now for 50 years. He is a different human being than the one that went into prison. 50 years. It's a long time. but it just demonstrates that people can change. Now, the question I should ask now, most people, when somebody does something wrong, they want punishment. Punish them. I have somebody very close to me who says if somebody does something heinous, execute their behind. And he doesn't say it as kindly as I'm saying it. Execute their behind. And I am wondering, are we better when we incline ourselves towards not only mercy, but redemption? You know, the very nature of the religion that is at the heart of the United States of America is the concept of redemption. Redemption says that if at all possible, people will benefit and society will benefit by giving individuals a second chance. That does not mean that you forget what they did or that you ignore what they did or that you don't address what they did. There are times when people need to be taken from society. There are times when people need to be treated in such a manner that they can absorb the full extent of the consequences of their action. But the idea of simply executing people or killing people or making people suffer, because I know someone that I care a great deal for who thinks that making people suffer is a good idea. And I'm here to suggest that that's not the best idea, that we can find better ways to changing our culture. I want to thank Dr. Roman for talking about the fact that policing, you know, adding to policing is not what made the difference or makes the difference. It is adding the elements to our culture, sometimes very simple elements to our culture. For example, air conditioning. Air conditioning. You know, when people can stay at home and chill out, no pun intended, with air conditioning, that makes a difference. I remember hanging out on the street because it was just too hot to be in the house. Hanging out on the street with nothing else to do, and you say to yourself, well, I guess I'll just hang out with these people. For those of you who are listening who want to know the name of the article that John Roman authored, it was called Vanquishing Zombie Theories of the Crime Decline. Vanquishing Zombie Theories of the Crime Decline. The best way to get your hands on it is to go to his Twitter page and check down a couple, and you will discover that that article appears there. Let's see. Probably. Exterminate all the brutes. See, I'll bring that back after our next break. 215-634-8065 is the number. And while we're talking about law enforcement and so forth and so on, you know, there was something that captured my attention. I didn't pay a lot of attention to it in the beginning, but I think I should bring it to you. Yeah, why not? I know all of you have heard about the fact that the police commissioner, in tandem with the city solicitor, recently apologized to the city for asking people in the city to request that certain quality of life offenses be kept in place. Now, I'm not going to get deeply into whether or not you should request it or whether or not you shouldn't request it. I want to talk a little bit about the commissioner herself. I have been an apologist, or a defender of the police commissioner having the right to establish herself in the city of Philadelphia. You know, give her the right, give her the time. And we're at a point now where time is not necessarily our friend. I listen to the police commissioner as she addresses issues. I think she's sincere, but I don't hear leadership. I hear good answers. I hear good answers. You know, they're good answers, but they're not. I don't hear leadership. I don't hear vision. I don't hear strength. I don't hear weakness. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying she's weak. And then more than anything else, I don't hear resonance. I don't hear. Put it like this: when Sylvester Johnson spoke to you, you got the impression that he was speaking not only from his heart, but that he was speaking to your heart, and that he was willing to do what it took to back up what he was saying. And I'm not talking about back it up by fighting you, but back it up by that he was invested. You got the impression that he was connected to the things that he talked about and addressed. I'm not feeling that right now from the leadership of the police department in the city of Philadelphia. I think she's a fine person. I think she means well, but I'm not getting that sense of that sense of gravitas and that sense of vision and that sense of passion that says, here's a person who's going to lead us through this. I'm just thinking that. Now, I've never had a discussion with the police commissioner, so I'm not talking about what I know of her. It's certainly not a like or a dislike thing because I don't know her at all. This isn't personal whatsoever. I'm talking about what I see as a civic leader in this community, as a pastor of the church, as a civic leader of this community, as a former administrator in the city, as a civic leader of this community, as someone who wields the power of a microphone and has the responsibility and accountability of leading a portion of the civic dialogue. I am saying that I am not seeing what I think we need to have at this point, and I'm not sure how to go about getting it. All right, I'll tell you what, let's take a break, and then when we come back, Tyrone, we will get to your call right here. We've got room for a couple more callers if you'd like to make that call, 215-634-8065. We'll take a quick break. You're listening to your favorite conversation station, 900 AM, 96.1 FM. This is the last half hour of Evening Words with Nick, and I'll be back after we complete these messages.
Barbers on Broad. We know grooming is important. Let us show you why. Our barbers have over a decade of experience providing quality services in a professional manner. We specialize in all the classic styles and cuts while delivering the sharpest finishes. Located at 1220 North Broad Street, Suite 3, best in town, best on Broad, Barbers on Broad. Mention this ad to save 10% on your next service. This ad is brought to you by the North Broad Renaissance and Truist Foundation.
Soul Food Mills Restaurant is here and open for business, located at 4514 City Avenue in Philadelphia. To find the delicious menu, visit www.soulfoodmills.com. Open on Wednesdays through Saturdays, 12:30 until 9 p.m. and on Sundays, 12:30 to 8 p.m. Make a phone order for pickup today by calling 215-921-6462. Delivery is also available via Uber Eats, DoorDash, and Grubhub.
The Black Words Book Club. WURD Radio's monthly conversation on books that explore the African American experience through social, economic, and environmental justice issues. Tune in the second Tuesday of every month on Evening Words with Nick Taliaferro, 4 p.m. till 7 p.m. The next book for May is Living in Color by Tommy Davidson. Be sure to listen live as Nick Taliaferro will hold a contest for a giveaway book bundle that consists of 4 titles from Kensington's Defina's Authors of Color's newest release. Don't miss it. Tuesday, May 11th on Evening Words with Nick Taliaferro. Attention for WURD members. Get your copy and receive a 20% discount when you purchase at Harriet's Bookstore or Hakeem's Bookstore. For more information on the Black Words Book Club, visit wordradio.com. The Black Words Book Club is sponsored by Defina. Defina is an imprint of Kensington Publishing Corporation, America's independent publisher, concentrating on authors of color.
WURD TV. We're streaming live video of this conversation right now.
Tune in on YouTube at onWURD
or on Facebook at ForWord.
WURD TV.
Black Talk Media.
You're listening to Evening Words,
hosted by Nick Taliaferro,
exclusively on WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD.
Hey, folks, keep your dial locked right here. Coming up at 7 o'clock, you check in with a very informative addition to our programming day, and that is making it plain what Black America needs to know about COVID-19, the variants and the vaccines, and that's coming up directly after this program at 7 o'clock. If you want to know more about it, head to facebook.com/blackdoctor.org or youtube.com/blackdoctor.org. Going to get right back to the phone lines here. Tyrone in North Philadelphia, thank you for the call and welcome to the program. Hello, Tyrone, are you there? Okay, let's move on. Let's see, Maurice in Southwest Philadelphia. Maurice, if you would be so kind, we'll take your call. Welcome to the show.
Nick.
Hello?
Well, we done had this discussion before. I just said it a little more eloquently than you. And, you know, we're past that. That's just my opinion, because I don't believe in throwing no sugar on it or being diplomatic about it. I just get to the point. I don't care if they send a Martian here to be the police commissioner. If they get the job done, that's all I'm concerned about. That's
well, let me
how I
ask you,
look at
what do
things.
you perceive the job to be when you say get the job done?
Well, first of all, if you're going to be the commissioner of Philadelphia, you need to know a little bit about Philadelphia, and if you don't, you got to get educated real quick. We don't have time with 500 murders for you to get to know your job. You got to hit the thing running. You know that.
I accept that. I accept that.
All I was saying before was when I said her resume was trash, I just said it in my way is that she was not prepared for the big city. That's all I was saying. And especially for another coast. You got to know the environment. You got to know the attitude of the people when you leave one region to another. And she was not prepared for that. And what I'm saying now, we need a real leader because first of all, you cannot police this problem. This problem has been coming for a long time. It didn't just start with her. It didn't come with Corona. This came with our school systems, the low employment for black people, no strong summer jobs for kids, no getting out of high school and starting a job. This thing is bad, and we let it happen because we put in our minds that all our children must go to college. Somebody has to stay to keep them stores open. Somebody has to stay to do the hard work, to do the blue-collar work. And all we kept talking was white-collar to our kids. And when they decided to go and they weren't ready for it, now they're unemployed, in debt.
Well, you know, the problems are plentiful, and you're right. We can look at those all day long. But back to one of the solutions, which is finding people that you can put in positions who can operate at a level of effectiveness that will help you.
Well, put me in charge.
You know, I don't. I must admit, you know, I want to see the commissioner succeed. I really do. I have every reason to want to see her succeed. But as I'm listening, what I'm hearing, I'm hearing sometimes things that take on the scent of a platitude. In other words, this is what you ought to say at this time. And it sounds right, but it just doesn't, it doesn't land with the gravity that says, hey, we're going to make this work. You know, it's...
Well, Nick, let me tell you one thing. I live out here in Southwest, okay?
Okay.
We just had some major murders out here in the last couple of months. With
You did?
The woman, the pregnant woman, the guy that got on 59th and Windsor, Baltimore Avenue. That's my area. And what it is when I walk out my door, I don't see police presence. You ain't got to be hassling nobody. You ain't got to be starting no trouble with nobody. Just seeing an officer standing on the corner, either a mini station or making a patrol in the neighborhood is enough to make somebody second think about what they want to do, and I don't see it.
The point, look, I can't argue the point. I mean, if you're saying that,
Nick.
I appreciate it, Maurice. I mean, Maurice is making the point that the presence of police makes a difference. Now, it doesn't cure things, but it does slow down the progress of some things. I remember when Mayor Street was the chief executive of the city, and he launched Operation Sunrise. Members of the police, the Fraternal Order of Police Union, and some other people called it, quote, scarecrow policing, unquote. In other words, putting police out there and just letting them stand there. But the fact of the matter is that scarecrows work. That's why they put them out in the field. It scares away the ravenous birds. And I remember, because I was at a meeting one time. I'm working for the mayor. I'm one of his deputies in the administration, and we're going over a list of communities where they're going to put police. And I looked at one place, I said, this isn't a drug corner. And they said, why do you say that? I said, because I live right there. I live right there. And he says, well, do you see people standing out there? I said, yeah. And I remember my friend Ray Jones said, well, you think they're waiting on a bus? You know? And I realized that I lived closer to a drug corner than I wanted to believe. And what they did was they brought police out, and police maintained a presence there for months. I mean, at first, you know, the dealers and all, they said, well, we'll just wait them out. They put those cops out there for months, and the neighborhoods changed. And I'm going to tell you something. You can acknowledge it if you want. You can deny it if you want to. But neighborhoods like Manayunk, neighborhoods like Gray's Ferry, neighborhoods like the Museum District, neighborhoods like Northern Liberties, all of these neighborhoods were renovated and evolved forward because of these programs, getting rid of the vacant cars, putting police out there, establishing another presence. Not necessarily putting the police out there to crack heads, you don't want that. But just as Marie said, they're out there and people have to think twice. If I see a cop, I'm going to think twice. And sometimes the only thing you need to change a situation is to get someone to think twice. Sometimes that's all that's needed. And it made a difference. And I'm not sure, you know, when I talk to police officers, and I know a few, and I look around the city, I'm not seeing, you know, and police officers, you got Derek Chauvin on trial. Police officers are not a very sympathetic figure right about now. But when I look, I guess it's because I'm a pastor, and a pastor is a person who's in a position where everybody knows what you should have done and what you ought to do. And the only person I think who's in a worse position is police. When they show up, everybody knows exactly what they ought to do or what they should have done or what they might need to do next. And the truth of the matter is, unless you've ever been a cop or at least been close enough to get a sense of what their job is, you don't know. And it is a horrible place to be. I mean, think about it. Being a police officer, people who hate you will call you to help them. How would you like to be called? I mean, I have pastored churches where I knew certain members did not like me, but then when something went down, I got the call. It's uncomfortable, at least. So policemen get calls to come to the aid of people that would just as soon see them dead, and they've got to go and serve. I mean, we were talking about yesterday a police officer who was getting cussed out by somebody. And the police officer was just quietly saying, sir, let's try to refrain from this. I mean, it's just a heck of a place to be. And coming up in a few days, police officers who are citizens just like you and me, who live in neighborhoods just like you and me, may be called upon to stave off advances by people who are, quote, either celebrating too hard, unquote, or who may be enraged because they don't like the decision. And the job of these police officers, who may not like the decision themselves or who may want to celebrate themselves, is to manage the behavior of people who intend on being unmanaged. Who wants that job? Final phone call of the day goes to Wick in Center City. Wick, thank you for calling. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Nick, like I say often, you have so many topics that anyone that has something on their mind can easily chime into.
Thank you, sir.
I just want to say in closing, I know you don't have much time left, but this thing to unravel, this land grab and real estate grab and share sales is such, it would take a whole entire show for you to really get the type of, I would say, the impact that it's had on just Philadelphia. Just Philadelphians are losing their most valuable asset. And the vultures and the gators and the crocodiles and the hyenas, they're circling the wagons. Believe me, they're out there, Nick.
They're out there.
And they will use whatever powers they can within the law to manipulate that process. Okay? So
and
I would
many
like for you
times-
to just make a pledge that maybe one day in the near future you do a whole entire show on land grab and sheriff sales.
You know what? And you know, we tried to do that not long ago when they were talking. But I make that pledge to you, Wick. That is something that needs to be done. I have a friend who is the director of one of the housing associations who keeps me informed. And I used to be the executive director of the Fair Housing Commission, and so I recognize that it's something that happens. I make that pledge to you, sir. And if I don't do it soon enough, please be kind enough to remind me.
Thank you so much, Nick, and you have a great evening.
Thank you, Wick. I appreciate it. Well, folks, that's about all that we can do for one short afternoon's worth of conversation. I want to remind everybody that coming up in just a few moments, you'll be led in discussion by Lonnie Love and White House leaders Dr. Marcel Nunez-Smith and U.S. Surgeon General Vivek Murthy. And you'll get up-to-date COVID facts for our black communities, and we're calling it Making It Plain, What Black America Needs to Know About COVID-19, the variants, and the vaccines, starting at 7 o'clock right here on WURD. I want to thank all of our guests who joined us this afternoon. Savvy Horn is the executive director of the Land Loss Prevention Project, and we talked about the loss of land that used to be in black hands. In 1910, black Americans owned 19 million acres of land. By 2012, that was down to 3.6 million acres of land. We're not even going to talk about housing. What has happened? During this week when we celebrate the earth, we're talking about getting our portion of the earth back one more time. All right, and we want to thank Dr. John Roman. Dr. John Roman, formerly of the Urban Institute, is a senior fellow at the National Opinions Research Center at the University of Chicago, and we talked about violence, crime, the enforcement of laws that deal with crime, and how we can possibly dial down on the violence in our society. I've got to get ready to say farewell to you. And on
one
behalf,
thing before you do go there, my friend.
Yes.
Safe Space is next, but for the conversation we just promoted, that's going to be on blackdoctor.org or youtube.com/blackdoctor.org. It's another program.
So I imagine that somebody thought that I would figure all of that out, huh?
If you just read, Reverend.
I read it, but how the heck was I supposed to know what it meant?
Because you read it, because you got to. It's phonics.
Let me look at it again. Look at it again.
Together.
Please read. You're thinking, oh, they changed the program. Okay.
No,
It's just that.
Just to be exactly.
I'm glad you straightened that out, man, so that people will know that Safe Space is coming up. And this other thing, I thought it was like a simulcast. What the heck did I know? What the heck did I know?
Gotta read.
I'm gonna read. I'm gonna read somebody.
Oh, you ain't doing nothing.
And there he is, ladies and gentlemen. Just when I'm about to thank him, I want to thank the entire family, broadcast family here at WRD, including the corrector of all ads and readings, Mr. Eric Nixon. My name is Nick Taliaferro, and I'm wishing you a great day today, a better one tomorrow. I'll see you again right here on the radio.